What is going on, guys? It is the NBA Locks Before Lock show, which precedes the NBA Deeper Dive, NBA Live Before Lock. Do us favors, you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have 12 games to talk about. We're going to be going game by game, finding our best bets from each game using OddsShopper. Free tool to use over at Awesemo.com. You guys could place some bets there. It takes like less than 30 seconds. Just go oddshopper.awesemo.com. You see all the bets, sort by ROI, win percentage, find the best bets on the slate. Matt, 12 games tonight. How are you feeling about all these games we have on tap?
We obviously got to go really fast. You have no idea the physical toll it takes to do two 12-game slates in Locks Before Lock in 1 week. Snip, snap, after that one-game slate last night. Anyway, I'm excited to get into it. It's going to be really fun. We got to go fast. Excited for it.
So with that in mind, let's start with the first game. It is the Dallas Mavericks on the road against the Philadelphia 76ers. The big news from this game, Joel Embiid is questionable. Doc Rivers said last week that he was going to set up some sort of rest schedule for James Harden and Joel Embiid. They're expected to sit out in some games down the stretch of the season. I personally think we're going to see Embiid sit out sooner rather than later, potentially tonight. With that in mind, what are you looking at for this game?
Yeah, so with that in mind, I'm not really touching that team right now. I'm going to look at Maxi Kleber over 6.5 points. He's averaging 7.2 points per game over his last 10 games. He's played 24.5 minutes per game, and we got him projected about 25.5. So that'd be a little bit more over his last 10, a little bit more in points per game, 7.7, 5.7 rebounds and 1 assist here, and only hit this over 30% of his games. But on OddsShopper, we actually like it here. An expected win rate around 60%, XROI of 22%. It's a top 5 bet in terms of XROI for this contest.
Yeah, it's hard because Joel Embiid's questionable. Like I said, my lean is that he's ultimately not going to play. And it's kind of hard to look at our current projections on Nets play on Nets. I said Nets because I'm looking at James Harden's picture right now, and he's wearing a Nets jersey where he played not too long ago. But it's hard to look at too many of the Sixers bets, which rate out strongly as under some of them, and think that they're actual good bets. Because if Joel Embiid gets ruled out, then you're kind of sitting dead with a lot of these bets. So here's what I'm looking at. James Harden does have a pretty modest 23.5 point total. If we do have Joel Embiid ruled out, which I think is going to be the case, then I'd be looking at some of the points props, overs for James Harden, overs for Tobias Harris, overs for Tyrese Maxey. Those are all things that become very favorable looking if Joel Embiid is out. We're just going to have to kind of react quickly. So once again, watch the Deeper Dive Live Before Lock after this, and we should have news on Joel Embiid before too long. Next game, as we fire through these, Memphis against the Atlanta Hawks, another game with pretty significant injury news, because for Memphis, Ja Morant and Killian Tilly, they are both listed as questionable to play. And then on the Atlanta side, Danilo Gallinari and Trae Young are listed as questionable. The two best players in this game, two all-star point guards, Young, Morant, both of them have status in doubt. How are you going to handle this situation?
So really what we saw is that a lot of the prop lines and our prop tools weren't really updated for this game because of the uncertainty about both star players. So honestly, I'm just going to take a cue from that. I'm going to make two offers for you, a sensible bet and a living dangerously bet. The sensible bet, Atlanta against the spread. We got an expected win percentage about 57%, XROI north of 10% at -110 odds. The living dangerously bet, though, I bet you can guess it. It's Atlanta money line, an expected win percentage of 38%. Memphis is pretty solid over the last 10 games, 7th in defensive rating, 5th in net rating, but Atlanta has kind of countered that. They're 6th in offensive rating, 15th in net rating, and both teams can play fast. Memphis especially 6th in pace over the last 10 games. I'm really excited for this game if both the stars play. I think I'll just go with a team bet if I'm going for any singular bet in this one.
All my homies hate Dylan Brooks because he was a massive chalk play the last NBA DFS slate because Ja Morant was ruled out, and we had Dylan Brooks at a really cheap price, particularly on DraftKings. It's $4,900 off the top of my head. He was a chalk play. He got off to a slow start, and then the game was a blowout. So we just ended up seeing limited minutes. He scores 20.75 fantasy points in that game. I think we're going to see a minutes upswing from him, though, because he had a really long layoff because of injury. Comes back, plays 26 minutes. I thought it was reasonable to think he'd play 30 last game after that, but then the blowout kind of stopped that short. I do expect close to 30 minutes from today. If you look at our projection right now on OddsShopper, we have a slight positive ROI on the over 16.5, but think of it this way. Over 16.5 is already playable as is. If Ja Morant potentially sits, then you're looking at that as an even stronger bet. So it's something that already has value, but also has potential to become very valuable. So that's what I think stands out the most from this game. As far as stars system that we kind of go on and off doing on this show, it's hard to say for these first couple of games because we're dealing with such significant injuries. But the Dylan Brooks one, I think there's some real logic there that makes it a good play with even potential to become a better play. Next spot, Portland Trailblazers against the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are at home, which means that there is going to be no Kyrie Irving. A lot of the usage should go to Kevin Durant. As for the Portland side of the game, everybody's out because that's just the status of things at this point in the NBA season. It's really wrapped up pretty quickly. We've only got about 10 games left or so for each team. And the Portland Trailblazers are without Anthony Simons, Yusuf Nurkic, Eric Bledsoe, Damian Lillard, all of them unavailable to play. So with that in mind, there's a lot of usage being concentrated on some guys that are not particularly good. Brandon Williams, Trendon Watford, Drew Eubanks. Any of those guys stand out to you, you're going to be looking on the other side of the game.
Yeah, let me tell you, I was actually at MSG for Portland Knicks earlier this week, and I got to watch a team in the Knicks do whatever they wanted on a basketball court because the Trailblazers, the team they are putting out there right now, looks absolutely helpless. When I was looking at this earlier, we had 6 bets north of 30% in expected ROI, and 3 of the top 4 of those were unders for Trailblazers in 3-pointers. Watford under 0.5 threes. Josh Hart under 2.5 threes. Brandon Williams under 1.5. If you want to just fade all these players in terms of those 3-pointers bet, I'm fine with that. But if I'm going to pick one, actually, I'm going to go with Andre Drummond under 11.5 rebounds. Last 10 games for him, he's had only 9 rebounds a game. Over the last month, actually, he's averaging south of 9 rebounds per game and has only hit 11.5 boards in 27% of his starts. With blowout risk comes the potential that Drummond may not even play the full minutes we project him if they're up huge in 3 quarters here. So I know the matchup looks enticing, and yeah, the Portland bigs are not going to offer any sort of a fight, but still, I don't like this at all. It's way too high of a line for me. I say it's 3 or 4 star bet for that under.
So I kind of want to make an executive decision here. We just got very massive NFL news. Did you see this?
Yeah, Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson has been traded to the Browns. In return, the Texans are getting 3 first-round picks, a 3rd-round pick, and then also a late-round pick swap. You know, we're kind of pressed for time because we have to get through all these NBA games. Here's kind of what I'm inclined to talk about now, because this is such big news. I think we should talk about some of the futures implications of what we like of the Deshaun Watson news. Then afterwards, we'll just hit on whatever we like left of the basketball slate. Chris, I'm sorry to do this to you. You come on helping us out to produce last minute. We weren't expecting Deshaun Watson to be traded, but this is as big of news as we're going to get. And Deshaun Watson, we haven't seen him play for a year and a half, but just kind of initial reactions. And I'm going to pull up some sportsbook odds here to see what we have available to us. What do you make of Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland now?
This is humongous. Obviously, the AFC is just blisteringly stacked in terms of quarterback play. Not that he's moving conferences here. The first thing you got to say is he's got an incredibly tough division. So in terms of their chances to win the Super Bowl, obviously it's going to shift when you move from a player like Baker Mayfield, who is kind of league average replacement level at the quarterback position, Deshaun Watson, really anything but still, you got to get through Joe Burrow and the Bengals. You got to get through Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, who had essentially a cursed season, a way better roster than their record implies at this point. And then, who knows with the Steelers? I do think it's probably a bad timing for betting on Deshaun Watson to be MVP. With that said, he's got a way better roster overall, a decent running game. They got to figure out the wide receiver position, but I assume with him in the fold, they are going to attract a couple of good players and certainly draft someone.
So here are some of the quick odds that I see available right now. Deshaun Watson, 16-1 to win MVP. Futures, we have the Browns are 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. That seems pretty short to me. Division, the Browns are plus 150 to win the AFC North. So they're now favored to beat out the Ravens and the Bengals, the Steelers. No real surprise there. The Steelers' big splash so far is signing Mitch Trubisky, and they just lost Juju Smith-Schuster, signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. So there's a couple things. First, with the MVP award, I think there's so much narrative against Deshaun Watson that even if he has a strong season, a lot of people on principle will just not vote for Deshaun Watson. I don't, do you think that's a reasonable enough narrative to not want to place that bet?
I actually think that's a perfectly reasonable bet. I don't want to get into optics or anything like that. It's just way above my pay grade and not something I need to worry about when I'm talking about betting most of the time. But they do market these players in terms of award winners. So I get what you're saying there. There are certain public relations things they are going to need to do if he wins MVP. That said, if he torches the league, they're going to figure out a way to honor him. That's just kind of the way sports works.
And then the other side of this too is because there's potential, obviously. Deshaun Watson does get suspended and doesn't play a full now 17 game season. This to me seems like because the odds move pretty quick here. This seems like a massive amount of line movement in favor of the Browns. Do you think there's an overreaction here and there maybe is value on a team like the Bengals? The Bengals were everybody's darling team. They were the popular public bet to win the Super Bowl. Now they have like the third best odds to win their own division after the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson. I'm kind of looking at this, and this is not typically the way I bet. Usually I'm trying to beat the line movement. I'm trying to be ahead of any kind of roster movement or injuries or anything like that. I'm kind of inclined to look at the Bengals at plus 225 as somewhat of long shots to win the AFC North at that point. What do you think of that line of logic?
I like the logic. I just personally don't like the team. I think the Ravens are the team that I might make a bet on. I saw them at plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl recently here. And now you got to expect that goes up in terms of odds here. I kind of like the Ravens. As I said, this is such a quarterback driven league. And if you've ever heard me talk on one of the NFL matchups show, one of the main stats I look at is drive success rate. What is your ability as a quarterback to turn a drive into a touchdown? And then I just use some fancy Bayesian updating to basically regress it to the mean. Lamar Jackson, among all players since 1999, is fifth best in terms of his ability to turn a drive into a touchdown. Deshaun Watson is 10th on that list. Tom Brady is on that list. Peyton Manning on that list. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, and Deshaun Watson. So we're talking about absolutely elite talents, both of them. I don't know if Joe Burrow is there. Obviously had a great season. I think there was a little bit of randomness. I'm going with the Ravens if I'm picking any team in that division.
Yeah, so I'm good. Here's where I'm going to push back just a little bit against you, because I think, and we're seeing people in the chat now, people like, oh my God, the Ravens. But the Ravens were really good, and then just Lamar Jackson got hurt down the stretch of the season. But I also think if you look at the totality of Joe Burrow's numbers this year, they're a little bit misleading because he came into the season coming off a devastating knee injury. He tore, ligaments I can't even pronounce. I don't know what things are called. People mistake me for a doctor sometimes. I'm not. But here's the bigger point then when it comes to Joe Burrow is he played so much better in the second half of the season than he did in the first half. And I think that kind of speaks to him just building up confidence and health in his leg. And I think the Joe Burrow that we got in the playoffs in the second half of the season is probably closer to the Joe Burrow we're getting going forward than the guy we saw in the first half of the season.
I think that is incredibly fair. Again, just looking at one stat, because it's the first thing I can pull up, and if someone says, who's a good quarterback? This is the first stat I look at. Joe Burrow is still in that definitely better than average tier, but not sure he's elite tier. Players can stay there their whole career. Phillip Rivers, a great example of a player who stayed there essentially his whole career. I think that's very much in the range of outcomes for Joe Burrow. I'm more inclined to say that Lamar Jackson is an elite quarterback. And I think they were playing well above what their roster actually was at. Remember, all their running backs got hurt. Their offensive lineman got hurt. Marcus Peters got hurt. In fact, their whole secondary got decimated by the end of the season. We didn't really see what this team was like in reality. Obviously, free agency and the draft is going to change things, but I can't believe we're talking about the Ravens because of this big deal. And honestly, as a football fan, I'm really thinking about this in a best ball perspective. I want to load up on the AFC West and the AFC North. We have shootouts galore that are bound to happen here. Go and just reach on those players a little bit. If you're in the, you're on the turn and you know you don't have a lot of picks coming up in a best ball draft, just go get that AFC West wide receiver. Even if there's some player in, I don't know, the NFC East with a similar projection, I want to take advantage of these possible shootouts that could happen all year long.
Yeah, I think that's good analysis. And if you guys aren't already following Matt on Twitter, follow Matt Draftaholic. He's going to have a lot of fantasy football and best ball content coming up. Something else you guys should check out if you haven't already. We now have our premium picks betting channel in our Discord channel. If you want to sign up, now is the time. We've got the NCAA tournament going on. Baseball's about to start. NBA playoffs are going to be underway soon. Click the link below to subscribe to our premium bets channel. We've got Alex giving out picks. We've got Ben Ross giving out picks, Steve Buzzard. So check out everything that they have to offer. Use the link below to sign up. Let's get back with NBA. We're not going to get to all the teams at this point. Who cares? We were hitting on some key news there, and we'll get through as many of these as we can. Next game that we have to talk about, it is my favorite player, Nikola Jokic, and the Denver Nuggets going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. What can you say about Nikola Jokic? He's been the best player in the NBA this year. If I had to offer any bet, like I've been pretty heavy on betting Jokic to an MVP. I still think that makes sense. But for this individual game, are there any props you like, Matt?
Yeah, I got a middling prop line that I think has good value. Isaac Okoro under 3.5 rebounds. Okoro's averaging 31 minutes a game over his last 10, 9.2 points, 3.2 rebounds, 1.8 assists. So it kind of looks like a pretty close, efficient line. No more than 5 rebounds in a game for an entire month. Obviously, Denver has a strong front line for obvious reasons. Their defensive rating is 8th over their last 10 games. Their net rating right there as well, 9th. I just see the projection as it's really close. So the projection median is around 3. And yet in 60% of our simulations, he falls short of that 3.5 rebound line. Again, the margin's razor thin, but an XROI of 28% is kind of unignorable. So I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Darius Garland for over 2.5 3-pointers. It's a 50-50 prop. I have him projected personally for 2.4 threes. We projected a little bit above that in our projections. But the key here is that it's kind of a coin flip at plus money. You can get it at plus 130. These kind of 3-pointer props, blocks, steals, are ones that I've liked a lot as of late. When you got something that's a coin flip, you're getting plus money on. It makes sense. Darius Garland this year averages 2.6 threes per game over the last month. He's averaging 2.7 threes. It's a fair line, but the plus money isn't correct. It should be minus 110 on both sides. So a little bit of value on that, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Darius Garland over 2.5 threes. Next game, the Washington Wizards on the road against the New York Knicks. Knicks pretty substantial favorites in this game, 5.5 points. I know you said that you were at the Knicks game the other day. Maybe a little inside intel, Matt. Anything you like from the Knicks? Anything you picked up while you were there watching them from right there in the stadium?
I mean, I honestly, RJ Barrett played great. He played effortlessly. Is really, we didn't really notice how he had racked up so many points, but there he was, over 30 points. I'm going to go with over 3.5 assists here because I think there's some negative regression coming in the scoring category, but we know that he's basically matchup proof in terms of minutes because he was out there for 40 minutes, even though they were up by a gajillion in the fourth quarter. That's just the way Thibodeau rolls. It's plus odds at plus 115 last I saw it. He's hit the over on this assist line in 2/3 of his games over the last month. He's not going to shoot 10 for 20 from the field, 5 of 11 from 3 every single game. He's not going to do that. And so he's going to have to contribute in other ways. He's averaged 19.5, 5.7, and 2.9 assists. So that feels that's over his last 10. So it feels kind of off that it would be over, but he's actually done pretty well in the games that he does go over. So Washington bad defensively. I'll take it. RJ Barrett over 3.5.
I don't know if we've ever done this on the show before. I know you and I have, and maybe you have with other people. I'm going to agree with you. I like that one as well. So the key here is just RJ Barrett playing massive minutes right now. And the main reason why, other than, Derrick Rose being out, although he's been out for a while, is the Knicks, this is their last gasp to trying to get into that play-in game. And that workload for RJ Barrett is just ridiculous, to the point where you had said, there was a game where they're down by like 20 points with 3 minutes left. Thibodeau still has RJ Barrett out there. And that was, about a month ago now. He ends up getting hurt in that game because Thibodeau is so steadfast on having to play these guys big minutes. So these last few games, 40 minutes, 42, 40, 38, 37, 44 against Phoenix, 41 against Philly. It's just an absurd workload. Those counting stats are going to be there.
It's like an entirely different league. It's like the Knicks put their players in for just like a standard deviation higher. It feels like that.
Yeah. And it's something, when you're setting your own projections, sometimes it's almost hard to trust them. Be like, am I really going to project somebody for 41 minutes or 40 minutes or 42? You kind of have to with this team, especially with their current situation. I think if they fall out of the playoff race, we're going to start to see a downtick in playing time for guys like Randall and Barrett. For now, though, I think it makes sense to ride them. Next game to go to, the Los Angeles Lakers struggling mightily against the Toronto Raptors. It took forever for sportsbooks to get hip to the fact that this Lakers team sucks. So Lakers are 9-point underdogs on the road here in Toronto. And for the longest time, the Lakers were getting their asses kicked in games they were favorites in. Now they are massive underdogs. What stands out to you about this spot?
Yeah, and I've noticed something too, that the books are pretty darn efficient with Lakers implied team totals, Lakers totals in general, and Lakers money lines are tend to be efficient because they know people want to bet them if there's any value there. So I'm actually going to roll the player prop. I like the Gary Trent overs in this game. Over 2.5 threes looks really interesting. I really like over 17.5 points. Both are among the highest expected ROI bets in this game. Trent has only hit this prop in a third of his games, the over in this prop in a third of his games over the last month. But just looking at the projected minutes, we got him projected for nearly 36 minutes tonight. We know the Lakers are just atrocious defensively, 27th in defensive rating over their last 10 games, 28th in net rating. We know Gary Trent has the green light, and obviously these bets are correlated over in three-pointers and over in points. I just have more outs with that points bet. He doesn't have to get there via the deep ball, so we'll do it that way.
There's a same game parlay I kind of like here because there are a bunch of Austin Reeves bets we like the unders for. The reason that it's inflated is Talen Horton-Tucker is listed as questionable, and it looks like books are pricing Austin Reeves props as if Talen Horton-Tucker is going to sit. But if he plays, Austin Reeves is just not going to play a massive role. He's going to play like 20 minutes off the bench. And if that's the case, all of these props look good on unders. Under 7.5 points, under 1.5 assists, under 3.5 rebounds. So I think that I'd take all of those, particularly if Talen Horton-Tucker plays, and just do a same game parlay and take the unders on all of them. They're all correlated. And if Austin Reeves plays his normal, 20-ish minute role or whatever it may be with Talen Horton-Tucker in, I think that all those are good bets for unders, and they're all pretty correlated well. So I think that's a good way to generate some upside. Next game, and we'll try to get through a few more of these before we hand it over to the guys on the deep dive, but do us a favor, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also let me know, do you guys like when we kind of went off topic and talked about Deshaun Watson? Because this is a new show, trying to figure out what we want to do with it, and maybe it makes sense from time to time to kind of go off the rails and talk about anything that's really massive news, but maybe that annoyed all of you. You wanted just to listen to us talk about NBA, so let me know how you felt about us doing that. Indiana Pacers, Houston Rockets next, two teams that are going absolutely nowhere this year. Doesn't matter when we have prop bets to place because there still might be some value there. Two bad teams, but there's a high total in this game. So does anything stand out from that sense?
Yeah, I love these overs on middling prop line from players who just play a ton. Jalen Green, the rebounding category, absolutely falls into that category here. Over 2.5 rebounds is a completely reasonable line. I know this isn't an area where he contributes over the last 5 games for Green. 2, 2, 1, 3, and 1 rebounds. But I still like the over here against Indy. He's averaging 16 points, 3 and 2.6 assists over his last 10 games. See, he's hit this line in 50%, almost 50% of his games over the last month. And we have a pretty conservative minutes projection for him, just 32 minutes. He could easily play 34, 35 minutes. That would not be unreasonable here. Indiana, 26th in defensive rating over their last 10. I'd say Jalen Green gets to 3+ rebounds tonight.
Yeah, so the number one prop that we have right now in this game is Malcolm Brogdon under 5.5 assists. We have it winning 66% of the time, good for a 24% ROI. And I also think there's a chance that we're going to see a downtick in minutes for Malcolm Brogdon going forward. I just don't think there's a need to play him the same massive minutes he was playing not that long ago. Because remember, he missed like a month and a half with an Achilles injury. And I thought, like, why are they going to bring him back? They're way back. They're way behind in the standings. Doesn't mean anything. Not only did they bring him back, Brogdon ended up playing 36 minutes, 35 minutes, 37, 41 over a 4-game stretch. And then he got hurt again. And then he came back. He played 28 minutes. I kind of think just based on these injuries piling up for Brogdon, the fact that the Pacers are just about done, like they're not playing for anything substantial for this season, I think it just makes sense to limit Malcolm Brogdon's minutes to like the high 20s range going forward. And I want to be ahead of that. And right now his props are still set fairly high. It's going to be the under 5.5 assists here for Malcolm Brogdon. This will probably be the last. Well, actually, I'll do it this way instead. We only have time for one more bet, Matt. Of everything left on the slate we have not talked about, what is your favorite prop bet of the night?
All right. We are all about the Alex Caruso overs. And, you know, we feel a special affinity for Alex Caruso here at Awesemo.com. Of the top 4 bets in this contest, when I was getting ready for the show, again, sorted by expected ROI, 3 of them are Alex Caruso overs. So the one I'm looking at, over 1.5 steals, expected ROI of over 30 on that one. If you're adding it to a single game parlay, you just tap 2+ steals if you don't see that exact line. If not, I also think 2.5 over 2.5 assists. Maybe that's actually my smash play. Plenty of expected playing time as they continue to ramp him up here. He's had 2+ assists in each of the games where he's played more than 25 minutes since returning here. And over the course of the season, he's averaged nearly 4 assists per game, an expected win rate nearly 70%. And the odds kind of suggest this is more of a coin flip. We say it's more like 2/3 of the time. I love it. That's my favorite.
Yeah, and I'm going to give out Reggie Jackson over 2.5 3-pointers. We do have this with a 56% win rate, 34% ROI. The reason the ROI is so high, the over 2.5 is plus 140. I have Reggie Jackson just outright projected for a little bit more than 2.5 threes. You look at his recent games against the Toronto Raptors, 4 threes, against Detroit, 3, against Atlanta, 3, against Washington, 5. So he's been over 2.5 fairly regularly. I know the matchup against Utah is far from ideal. But still, how are the Clippers going to compete with a team that's much better than them on paper? You add variance to the game by shooting more 3-pointers. If this was a 50-50 line, like I said about some of those other props, I'd say, like, okay, that's about fair for Reggie Jackson, but it's not. We're getting plus 240 odds on something that's basically a coin flip, 2.5 threes. I like the over there, so that is what I'm going to go with. That is going to do it for us, guys. We're handing over to Deeper Dive and then Live Before Lock. I'll be on Live Before Lock as well. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out Odd Shopper. Good luck tonight.
Yeah, that's crazy.
230 million guaranteed.
Yeah, that is a lot of money. Have you seen what's going back? I saw like 3 first rounders and then more, but I haven't seen
3 firsts, I think a third, and then and then a 4th or a 5th pick swap or something like that.
Okay. And then Baker said he wants to go to Seattle or Indy.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, this offseason's been nuts.
Yeah, we're good. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo Fantasy Sports. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, as always, Adam Scherer, closing out the work week today with a 12-gamer. So we had a 1-game slate. Orlando, Detroit sandwiched in between 2 12s. I'm looking for this next week. I already looked, Adam. It's going to be a lot less intense, which is good. The 7 to 9 games is the sweet spot.
Yeah, agreed. I could have done without basically this entire week. The only good thing was it was nice yesterday, just basically being off for St. Patrick's Day. So that was nice. But yeah, I can do without the 12 gamers.
Yeah, Josh and I did 2 hours for an Orlando Detroit game in the morning and then at night.
Yeah, I saw you guys were on both shows because I didn't realize that I was going to be off, and I just happened to look at the schedule and I was like, oh, cool, Loughy and Josh, and I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, let me tell you something. You'll believe that it wasn't hard at all because for a 1-game slate, there was so much madness going on, like with Wendell Carter and then the Pistons lineup and then Cade being out. There was never, it felt like there was more than 1 game on the slate.
Yeah, even the injury report show I did with Greg, that was the one piece of content I did yesterday. But even that, like I hadn't really looked at the injury report before we did it. And I was like, there can't be that much to talk about. It's 1 game. But it was like, oh, there's a lot.
Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up. Atrocious right now. 68. It was like 60 a second ago. 550 people watching. Gonna have to talk to the boys before us. Get those numbers up. I mean, 200 out of the gate seems reasonable. Starting a little bit early, so it's understandable. But if you haven't done so yet, you like this content, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to join, down below, you'll see that join button. Get the free super chats each month, those sweet badges. We got some people iced out now with the 12-month badges, the emojis, and we'll always prioritize your questions, your comments, along with our Discord members. And now we got that feature where we can throw everything up on the screen. Chris, can we put the super chats or we put the super chats up on the screen still are now, right? I think we do. Yeah. Yeah. With the dollar bills. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So come join us, join the party and we'll have some fun. Anyway, 12 games to break down. Same question I always ask you out of the gate, especially with these bigger slates. How easy will it be today to go stars and scrubs? Or are we looking at like potential balance lineups as well with so many games?
No, I mean, I think it's kind of like Wednesday where there's a lot of guys to pay up for and they're also really underpriced. Like we've seen DraftKings at the top end just kind of lower salaries on those top tier guys. So it makes it even more stars and scrubby. Right now there's not great cheap value, but with this many games, for one, there's probably just going to be news between now and lock that opens some stuff up. But for two, like there's just so many players that you can rotate through. It's kind of like there's going to be cheap guys that do well. It's just a matter of, how obvious they're going to be and figuring them out. But I think it's pretty safe to say that it's a stars and scrubs slate.
And we'll obviously be paying attention to all the news that breaks throughout the show. If any, there's going to be some news for sure. And then you got Live Before Lock, Greg and Eric coming up after this. They'll take you all the way up till 7:30. So stick around with them after lock. You got nothing to do tonight. They'll be hanging out 30 minutes afterwards, talking ownership and Yahoo and all that good stuff. So let's dive into it. No more pleasantries here. We got 12 games to get through. Dallas and the Philadelphia 76ers. This is one of the crazy games you'll see. And here's what I mean. So I was looking at this for the video for my betting video on the Odd Shopper channel today, Adam. Dallas has gone under in over 64% of games. They've gone under the total. That's easily the most. Philly's 55%. That's 6th. Dallas plays at the slowest pace in the league. Philly plays at the 2nd slowest pace, and both of them have top 10 defenses.
Yeah, not the most appealing spot. Should be a good game, but
Oh yeah.
yeah.
But I think mostly on a slate like this, just when you're talking about a Dallas team that has a Luka or Embiid, who really has not been hindered much by James Harden at all from a fantasy standpoint. There's always the argument that, hey, you want to play Luka Doncic, you play Luka Doncic. You want to get to a Joel Embiid, Doncic at 10% right now, Embiid at like 3% at sub 11K. You're never going to argue that, but we'll start with Dallas. What do you want to do with Luka?
I think he looks very good. He's 11-2, which is close to $1,000 less than he would have been a couple of weeks ago. But I think just like Wednesday, it's very difficult to point to like one pay up guy and say, oh, this is the guy that I want in all my lineups, because he's just going to look so similar to the other pay up options. But I do think 11-2 is too cheap for Luka. Certainly going to be happy to get there. There's also some potential value here, though. I'm curious to see what the Dallas starting lineup looks like, because last game they started Spencer Dinwiddie alongside Brunson and Luka, but in the second half they went to Kleba over Dinwiddie. And so you ended up getting 30 minutes from Kleba. You ended up getting about 30 minutes from Dwight Powell. At 3,900 with power forward eligibility, Kleba's not a great point per minute guy, but that's a pretty cheap price tag if he moves into the starting lineup.
You would think so. How do they do anything here to try and combat Joel Embiid and just the Sixers lineup? Like, do you think there's an ideal starting lineup for? Because I would assume Embiid plays today. He did participate in shoot around. He was questionable last game. He played, dropped 35 points. So I'm just assuming he's in.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's into. And I mean, personnel-wise, I don't think that there's anything you can do. Like, the answer isn't Dwight Powell. It's not Maxey.
No.
I'm sure they'll just double him and do whatever, try and get the ball out of his hands. But yeah, I don't think that Embiid is going to dictate anything lineup-wise just because they don't have an answer. It's more so, do they want, how comfortable do they feel with Kleba out there with Tobias Harris playing the 4 for Philly?
With Philly, we have Embiid at 3.5%. Do you think that comes up in the event that he's in?
Probably a little bit. He was pretty popular on Wednesday, if I remember correctly, got a lot of ownership. I think it comes up here. I mean, it's a good spot against Dallas. He's really cheap at 10,800. The only thing sort of that I could see holding it back a little bit is that, he is center only, so there's less roster spots you can use him in, and there's a million guys to pay up for.
The rest of Philly just looks ugly outside of one spot that 8% is understandably low. But you're talking about a guy in James Harden, who, if we're just using DraftKings pricing, right? 2 weeks ago, he was 11.5. Now he's 9.6. So has he been dominant from a fantasy standpoint recently? No, but it's still a $9,600 James Harden, which is, why he's getting a little bit of ownership at least.
Yeah, and I mean, in 9 games played with Embiid, Harden's averaging 1.36 DraftKings points per minute, 37.5 minutes per game. So it's not like he's been bad, and we know the ceiling is certainly still there. I think 9,600 is a very cheap price tag, and it goes without saying, if Embiid were to sit, James Harden probably becomes the best play on the slate.
Yeah, 9,600. Yeah, I mean, that's a $12K play right there.
Yeah, for sure.
If Embiid's out, right? And in Philly, he has a 25.5% usage rate. Not insane, but what's his assist rate's 43%, 10% rebound rate. He's still a triple-double threat. So that price point does definitely stand out a little bit. But aside from that, I don't really see anything of value from Philly right now at all.
No, I don't either. I mean, I just don't have interest really in getting to, Harris, Maxey, any of these guys. Yeah, it's pretty much Embiid and Harden.
All right. Keep it moving. Denver and Cleveland. Nuggets laying 3 points against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who obviously still without Jared Allen. This is and actually, you and I haven't talked about this slate at all. So this is the first time we'll be discussing it together. To me, a really good spot for Jokic. The Cleveland Cavs in 5 games since Jared Allen went out have been bludgeoned by opposing centers. Now, they faced some good ones, but Embiid dropped 35 on him. Bam dropped 30 on him. Ivica Zubac dropped 24. You saw Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Smith combined for 27 against them. Centers are beating them up without Jared Allen there defending the paint.
Yeah, and Jokic obviously is pretty much matchup proof. He's going to have big games against basically everybody. The only issue that I think you have with Jokic, it's the same as we said with Embiid, where you can only roster him at center, but he's also the most expensive player on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Also, he projects the best, but it's not like it's a big gap between him and Embiid or him and Luka or him and Durant. So, yeah, I mean, I like Jokic. I don't think that he's like drastically different than the other pay up options, though.
Do you want to talk about anything of real significance from Denver?
Not really. I mean, beyond Jokic, it's Barton, Morris, Gordon. They're all playing around 30 minutes. I know Barton's like 4,900 on FanDuel, so decent price tag on him there. But Jokic just does so much offensively that for me to have interest in guys like Barton or Gordon, I would really need to be expecting them to play 34 to 36 minutes, and typically that's just not really what we're getting from them.
It really is interesting to see the bottom fall out of so many salaries on DraftKings. Like if you look at the other side of this game, Darius Garland overnight down $500. He's 8,500. He's playing absurd minutes right now. Like Garland's minutes are through the roof. High usage. I know Karis LeVert's back, but still a pretty high usage player. He's getting to the line at an impressive clip. He's knocking down. He's attempting a ton of threes, which on DraftKings at least is really helpful. And he has easily one of the highest assist rates in the league over the since the trade deadline. So it's really hard not to look at Garland and say, yeah, with those minutes and usage and assist rate and the 3-point upside, there's a lot to like.
Yeah, and he's projected to pull about 16% ownership. I think he's one of the stronger options in that price range. And in the 5 games he has played with LeVert this year, he has a 32% usage rate and a 34.5% assist percentage. He's averaged almost 37 minutes per game, 1.17 DraftKings points per minute. So at least, so far, only 5 games, but you haven't really seen LeVert cut into his production. So I agree. Garland looks really good. Beyond that, you have a cheap price tag on Lauri Markkanen. Evan Mobley sees a bump in rebounding numbers and a little bit of a usage bump without Jared Allen. You can certainly go to those two, but I don't think they look nearly as favorable as Darius Garland does.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, from this game, it's mostly just Jokic and Garland.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. You're short-winded today.
12-game slate. Like it's just like there's not a lot to talk about unless you're gonna just talk about playing 140 guys. All
right. Well, we got 10 games to go and an hour to make it happen. Portland's a 14.5-point dog against Brooklyn, 227.5 total. So this game, even with Kyrie Irving out, a lot of potential to get out of control here. Chris Dunn pulling the highest ownership for the Blazers. According to our projections, he's at 21%. Ownership isn't free today, but player rankings are free. Very helpful. NHL player projections are free. MMA, UFC pro plays are also free. You don't need an account. You can just jump on board there if you want to follow along. But talk to me about Chris Dunn today against the Brooklyn Nets.
It's hard not to like him as a value play, even though I'm not like super comfortable with it. But in the 2 games he's played with Portland, he played 20 minutes and then he played 28 minutes. I'm not necessarily expecting another 28, but even if he gets 20 to 22 at minimum salary, he's 3,500 on FanDuel, he's $3K flat on DraftKings, and with the way value looks right now, at least, like there's so many guys to pay up for. There's not a ton of really cheap guys. Dunn is there. You have a couple of guys that you can go to from Utah, but he's really useful, I think, in roster construction. So, I certainly have concerns because Portland can kind of just change their rotations at will. They're horrible. They're not playing for anything. There's no reason. Like they could just come out and say, oh, well, we're going to play Keon Johnson more minutes today and Chris Dunn plays 16. Like that certainly is possible, but I don't think it's the most likely outcome given what we've seen in the last couple of games. And he's not a bad point per minute guy. Over the last 3 seasons, he's at 0.89 DraftKings points per minute. In his first 2 games with Portland, he's at 0.87. So if he does get into the low to mid 20s, he's going to be a good point per dollar option.
Can you provide some context to this comment from Josh that said Joel has never been double teamed?
Yeah, somebody in chat this morning claims that that defense in 2022 is horrible. It's worse than it used to be. And his evidence was that Kevin Durant has never been double teamed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured it was something from the strategy show. You guys always get something good from the strategy show. There's always one.
Yeah. He said that Durant like said in an interview that he's never been double teamed, and Josh like pulls up NBA.com and is like, he's the most like one of the most frequently double team players in the NBA.
Kevin Durant, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Catch a Rising Star Comedy Club. Welcome to Team Awesemo. All right. Where's that at? Oh, comedy clubs. There's multiple venues. Glad to have you, man.
I thought you were doing a new ad read.
No. No, I'm not. But
somebody said why is done 20%, just because he projects for like 6x and he lets you pay up for other guys.
How many minutes are you giving him?
22, 23.
Okay. Do you want to get to anything else from the Portland Trailblazers?
No, I don't. I mean, Brandon Williams and Josh Hart both certainly have high ceilings. Like if the Blazers hang in this game, there's a good chance that one of them, most likely Hart, is having a big game. But the issue that you run into is like Josh Hart's only $600 less expensive than Garland. He's like the same price as RJ Barrett. He's more expensive than Fred VanVleet. So it becomes really difficult to, to prioritize him and to view him as anything more than just a, secondary option that gets into a lineup here and there.
I think based on his minutes in production, Eubanks on FanDuel and Yahoo's fine. He's 53 on FanDuel, power forward eligibility, 16 on Yahoo. But that's it.
Yeah, like it's not that you're predicting this game to blow out, but you do have to factor in just how bad Portland is and how frequently they get blown out. And, it's reflected in Hart's average playing time. If you go back to the last game, he got 28 minutes. If that game were close, he would have played a lot more, but it wasn't. And there's a good chance tonight won't be either. So you can't just go in and say like, oh, the median, outcome is that Josh Hart plays 36 minutes. If he does play 36 minutes, he probably has a good game. But there's plenty of guys on this slate that you can just be, a little bit more confident in their playing time.
So let me ask you this then. Do you apply that same logic on the other side to Kevin Durant?
Not really. I mean, sort of. Like if you want to take a minute or two off of Durant, you certainly can.
Yeah. But at the same time, if it's a blowout, it's them doing the blowing out. Right. They're the team that's scoring more points.
Right. It's always less risky to go there. And, they don't really have anything beyond Kevin Durant. So, they have a 121 total here. If they blow out Portland, it's probably Durant just going nuts for three quarters.
Let's talk about Brooklyn then. So you've got Durant. Claxton is another one pulling a lot of ownership right now at 3,400. It's kind of a weird stars and scrub slate though, right? Because it's not one of those stars and scrub slates where it's like all of these backups playing, locked into 30 plus minutes because three of their starters are out.
Right. It's like you could get some value opening up, but now it's the value isn't as strong or as obvious in most spots as it is on, a lot of other slates.
Like the Trae Young news is big right now, waiting on that.
Yeah, the Gilgeous-Alexander news.
SGA, that's big. So there's a lot of big spots, but right now you're looking at Claxton as the third highest owned player on the slate, Adam.
Yeah, and that 3,400, I think it makes sense. It's just a mispricing. You do have Seth Curry that said he expects to play, so there is a non-zero chance that you don't get 48 minutes combined from Drummond and Claxton. There's also the chance that they do combine for 48 minutes, but Drummond's the one that plays 26 and Claxton plays 22. Kind of the opposite of what you got last game. But at 3,400, none of those risks are that big because really all you need is like 20 to 22 minutes from Claxton, and you should be fine at that price tag.
How much do you think guys like Claxton and Alexander Walker and Chris Dunn, how much do you think their ownership comes down in the event that like Goga Bitadze ends up being out, Trae Young ends up being out, SGA ends up bebeing out, or even like one or two of them?
Yeah, I mean, if Goga's out, it probably goes up because Goga would be a really good value piece if he's in. That you're losing, but if Gilgeous-Alexander's out, if Trae Young is out, especially Gilgeous-Alexander, I think because there's, you would get Teo Maledon, you would get Lindy Waters as cheap plays. Like the Claxton and the Utah guys and Dunn, they're going to get ownership one way or the other. It's not like they're really bad plays that like you're just stuck on right now. They still look pretty good, but the ownership would certainly come down as more value opens up.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that Indy game because I think it could go a couple different ways, but we'll close out Brooklyn first. you touched on Durant a little bit though. Among all the high priced players on the slate, and there's just an insane amount of them, which we already talked about a few. You have Jokic, Doncic, Embiid, LeBron, DeJounte Murray, John Morant. We think he's going to play. Trae Young, if he plays, all of them are over 10,000. And then you throw somebody like KD into the mix without Kyrie Irving in a very, very good matchup, albeit a matchup that could get out of hand. He's pulling almost 20% today, which is not something we've seen very often for Kevin Durant, even with Irving out lately.
Yeah, but I think he should be. For one,
Sure.
he has Ford eligibility, which is just a little bit more valuable. Like typically, there's no shortage of guards and no shortage of centers to get to. It can be a little bit more difficult to find good Ford plays, and so I think that's the case tonight as well. So the ownership makes some sense there. Plus, 10,500 for him against Portland without Kyrie is clearly underpriced.
Top plays from Brooklyn. Is it KD, Claxton, anybody else you want to talk about? And like you pointed out, yeah, Seth Curry said this morning he does expect to play today.
Yeah, I think the top plays are Claxton and Durant, but $5K Dragic, $5,200 Curry, $5,600 Brown, $5,400 Drummond. Those guys all look fine as well. Just I think a tier behind the other two. And I wouldn't play Drummond with Claxton if anybody was about to ask that.
You wouldn't play what, Drummond with Claxton?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as someone in chat said, is it okay to play Claxton, Alexander Walker, and Dunn in the same lineup? Yeah, there's no reason not to, as long as the rest of your lineup is good.
Okay. Memphis and Atlanta. Now, I think Ja is going to play here. I don't see much reason to believe he won't. He was out with that sore back, but he went through practice yesterday. Are you with me on that? You expect him to play, or at least have him in?
Yeah, I have him in.
Okay. So 5-point favorites, or did this move? Let me make sure. Yeah. 5-point favorites last I looked. Memphis against Atlanta. We still don't know what's going on with the Atlanta Hawks, so we can break all of that down. But I mean, you've seen the ownership on this Memphis team right now, right?
I assume it's basically non-existent.
Guess what the highest owned?
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it now. 0.5%.
Crazy. I mean, they total like 2% ownership, if that, as a team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Like, yeah, they're probably a little underowned in the sense that like, and they probably will be like 2-3%, instead of 0.5%. But they're pretty much correctly priced across the board, assuming Morant plays. Like, there's definitely a ceiling for Morant at 10-2, but he's $300 less than Durant. He's $600 more expensive than Harden. There's a lot of guys that just look a little bit better, especially when you consider that Dylan Brooks is back. And we know that cuts into Morant's usage a little bit. Brooks' salary came up $1,000. Steven Adams is, correctly priced. Jackson and Bane, I think, are priced where they should be. So on a slate where you have 12 games and there's just so many guys that are clearly like $500 to $1,000 less expensive than they should be, when you get to a team like Memphis, even though they have plenty of high upside players, they have plenty of really good players, it's just really difficult to get to any of them because there's so many alternatives that are cheaper than they should be.
Atlanta gets really, in a sense, difficult, but also interesting. Let's talk about this. If Trae Young is in, are you interested?
Yeah, he's very good without John Collins. Usage rate goes up. The matchup against Memphis, isn't ideal, but the game should be high scoring, and Young's only 10-1, so he'd certainly be in the mix of, north of 10K guys that look good. I would get to him before I got to Morant, for example.
Okay. Now, if Trae Young sits, we already know John Collins is out with that plantar fascia. He's and some, I think his hand or his thumb or something.
Yeah, his finger.
Yeah. So with Trae Young off the floor this year, we'd have to take John Collins off the floor as well. Is Gallinari questionable or probable right
Questionable.
now? Okay, that's what I thought. So you've got Gallo questionable as well. This team could open up essentially the most value on the slate. It's very possible. The total is 237.5. So you expect to see a lot of scoring. It probably comes down a little bit if these guys are out, but still, like Bogdanovich, 27% usage rate with those two guys off the floor this year. Kevin Huerter's at 24%. Where do we turn to, number one? Who benefits the most, and how much DeLon Wright are we going to have if Trae Young sits?
Yeah, so if Young is out, You get DeLon Wright benefiting in terms of minutes. He's only 3,300. You would expect him to start and play like 30 minutes. He's not a great point per minute guy. He's played 603 minutes this year without Young or Collins. He's averaged 0.77 DraftKings points per minute. Only
with
an
11% usage rate.
Yeah, 11% usage rate, 20% assist percentage. But just for the number of minutes that you would expect him to be out there, he would look like a very good value. I think that, and you mentioned it, Bogdanovich and Herter are the two that I think see the biggest uptick in terms of production. Gallo's at a fantasy point per minute without Young and Collins as well. Bogdanovich is at 1.22 DraftKings points per minute, 24.5% assist percentage, 27% usage rate. Herter has a 23.5% usage rate, 22% assist percentage, 1.03 DraftKings points per minute. So those guys would look better. DeAndre Hunter would certainly be fine. Capella and Okongwu would be fine. And then if Gallo's out, it's a little bit messier because we would need to see what the starting lineup looks like. In the last game that Gallo missed entirely, the Hawks started DeLon Wright and they slid Herter and Hunter down a position. But then last game, when Gallo got hurt in the first half, they started Loughy in the second half. So I don't really know which lineup they would go to. If they start Loughy, I would expect that he's playing in the mid-20s. At 3K, you can take a shot on him, but it's not something I'd be super confident in. If they started DeLon Wright, I'd feel a little bit more bullish on him just because he's already in the rotation. So it would signal that he's going to play more minutes. Whereas if TLC gets to start, you're talking about someone that's not normally in the rotation, and there's just an increased risk that he's kind of playing getting a spot start and only playing like 20 minutes.
Do you think it's possible that Bogdanovich starts at the point?
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that if you were down Trey, Collins, and you were down Gallinari, we know, okay, so you start Capella, you start Kevin Herter, you start Hunter. Who else are we starting? Like if you were just putting a lineup together right now, assuming Gallinari and Trey are out.
I assume, so you're asking what I think the Atlanta starting lineup would be?
Yeah. I'm saying we know what 3 of the 5 would be. So what
if they're both out, I would assume that it's Wright, Herter. It's either Bogdanovich or TLC, Hunter, and Capella.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like Wright probably, if both of them are out, I feel like Wright probably has to start at the point.
Yeah. Like if Young is out, I wouldn't be surprised if Bogdanovich starts. Like if they're both out, I wouldn't be surprised if Bogdanovich starts just because they need, more offensive firepower. If Young is in and Gallo is out, I think it's more likely you get one of Wright or TLC, and then you just keep Bogdanovich out there with the second unit and then probably in the closing lineup.
For sure. All right. Well, it's a solid breakdown, but all right, last thing. If both of them are out, so that makes Collins, Gallinari, and Trey Young, we have a pretty good idea of what the starting lineup should look like or could look like. Who would be the top plays here? Like DeLon Wright, I know he's not great. We talked about his per minute production, but you have to assume he gets a lot of minutes in that situation if both of them sit.
Yeah, I think DeLon Wright ends up looking like one of the best values if he starts, especially if he's starting in place of Trey Young.
Yeah, and Bogdanovich might have a 35% usage rate in a game like this. I'm stretching a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
Bogdanovich and Herter would both look really, really good if Trey Young is out.
Okay. Anything else for Atlanta you want to hit on?
Yeah, the center spot. I expect 48 minutes from Capella and Okongwu. If Gallinari's out, I'm even more confident in that. But it makes both of them look decent. Capella's at 6,300. He's averaging about 28.5 minutes per game without John Collins. Okongwu will probably play the other 20 to 22, depending on how many minutes Capella plays. So I think Capella looks better than Okongwu at their respective price tags. But if we don't get more value opening up, I do think you can go to Okongwu in some lineups as well.
Josh of Los Angeles with the free super chat, 11 months, about to be iced up, son, says, I love you. That's all. Love you too, man. I'd love for you guys to hit that thumbs up. Thanks for getting us over 200. Well on our way to 500 today for this 12 gamer. All right, so let's keep it moving here. We have, where are we at next? Washington and the New York Knicks. How are you liking Kristaps Porzingis in Washington?
I like him a lot.
Yeah. Starting back at the center position, that's nice. No more power forward. I dig it.
Just hopefully he can stay healthy.
More block shots, hopefully. Got him at over 1.5 blocks today. I was at plus 170. Odd Shopper loves it. One of the highest expected ROI bets over there. It's free, by the way. But he's not particularly cheap. How many minutes can we reasonably expect for somebody like Porzingis right now?
If the game's competitive, I expect him to play 27 or 28 minutes. That's the maximum that we've seen from him so far. So it wouldn't be shocking if maybe he plays another minute or two, but I expect him to be in that range.
I was thinking a close game, he gets to 30, honestly.
He could. Washington has been in some blowouts recently too, so it's kind of difficult to really gauge where they're at because like the last game, for example, like normally, like if they're in competitive games, you would expect to see, or you would be able to get a pretty good idea because you would either see that he's like consistently playing 26 minutes every game, or you're seeing a trend where it's like 26, 27, 28. But because like last game blew out, he only played like 11 minutes in the first half. He played like 23 total. You can't really take a whole lot away from that. So my expectations, 27 or 28, you could certainly get a pleasant surprise where he plays a couple minutes more though, if it's close, I think.
Do you have any expectations that the rest of this Washington team could be viable today? Avdia, Corey Kispert, even like a Rui Hachimura, all of them I think I mentioned this to you the other day. You had everybody outside of Kyle Kuzma in like the 3 to 4K range for Washington. But now that Porzingis has been back for a little bit, he's up there. But Avdia, Kispert, Hachimura, they're all essentially minimum salary plays today.
Yeah, I like rotating through those guys, especially, again, if you get Trae Young in, if you get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in, and you don't get that value opening up, it's a case where like you shouldn't be super confident in any of Avdia or Rui or Neto or any of these guys, but they should all probably be like 4K instead of 3,300 or 3,400. So I think just rotating through them, not playing them in the same lineup, but. Avdia certainly has a path to success. Rui has a path to success. He's been shooting well, shooting over 50% from three this year. Wouldn't be surprising if he just kind of keeps finding ways to get more minutes. They were talking to Wes Unseld Jr. about him possibly getting into the starting lineup. Unseld, said that it's not something they ruled out, but that he also really likes him in his current role. But I do think that he can find his way to get, like a consistent 24, 25 minutes going forward. So yeah, just kind of getting to all those guys here and there, just because I think they are a little bit underpriced.
WS said the people that have been Awesemo members should get badges, especially 3+ years. But I'm just saying, how do I get this YouTube badge thing? It's all new to me. Where do I sign up? We can't. Like we were going to try and transfer just like everybody from Awesemo over, but you can't because it's all through Google. So we don't really have that choice, but it's right. You got it. All right. You got it. Yeah. It's right down below that join under the thumbs up. I don't know. I have members. I'm a member. So it just says see perks, but I think it says join. I think.
Yeah, it says join.
Join. Okay. Yeah. So it says join. You can join if you'd like to. If you don't want to, that's cool, but we'd love to. There he is. WS. Welcome to the team, bro. There we go. Hey, you're always here. Why not do it? Now, the team grows. New York Knicks, 6-point favorites at home against Washington. Let's start with RJ Barrett. Guy's just playing preposterous minutes, like 40 plus in 3 straight. I'm not saying he's the greatest player out there, Adam, but his usage is up. His minutes are up. And that at least makes him kind of interesting in a pretty decent matchup. Or is it tough to get there today?
No, I don't think it's tough to get there. It's a good matchup. He has point guard and small forward eligibility on DraftKings, which is great. He's playing huge minutes, like you said. Josh and I talked about it a bit this morning. Like I think 38 is where I would typically project him, just because stuff happens in basketball games, and I typically don't feel very comfortable going north of that. But if this game's competitive, you shouldn't be surprised at all if he tops 40 minutes here. He's got close to a 30% usage rate without Kemba and Rose on the floor. And also, I went back and looked this morning over the last month. So over the last month, he's averaging like 18.5 drives per game. If you look from the start of the season up until February 17th, he was averaging about 10.5 drives per game, playing 5 minutes fewer over that stretch. So you would expect the drives per game to go up just based on playing time, but not to basically double. He's just being very aggressive. He's getting to the basket, and he's just scoring more consistently. So I think RJ Barrett looks like a really, really good play. I think he's one of the stronger mid-range options tonight.
Yeah, under 8K. Like you said, 38 minutes, but would you be shocked if he played 41? No, not
at all.
You look at Popcorn Machine, there's like nothing in between any of these rotations. It's just him playing all game. So I can get on board with that. The thing is, like the reason, and I know you're the same way, the reason these guys can be so valuable, and it's not to say that he doesn't have It's not to say that he's got a 45-point floor, but when you play this many minutes with that much usage, usually it's tough at this price to absolutely kill you just because you're on the floor.
Yeah, and Barrett's played 1,086 minutes without Kemba or Rose. He's at 1.05 DraftKings points per minute, 29.2% usage, 17.5% assist percentage, 9% rebounding percentage. It's not like he's totally scoring dependent, and he has a massive usage rate.
You guys have any interest in sorry, I was reading chat.
I was like, who are you talking to?
I was like, Chris, how do you feel about Julius Randle? Chris Karen producing today's show. No, I was reading. You read that and then you start saying what you're reading.
Yeah.
You know what else I was thinking today? And I won't tie this up.
Something about zombies.
Whatever happened to water beds?
What were you doing when you thought about that?
I heard someone talk about them, and I was like, God, I remember water beds. And the only thing they were good for was, I won't get into it, but sure, you ever think about, I'm sure you've pondered it before.
It's not something that I typically, that typically crosses my mind.
Okay.
So, and like, I didn't know, did they go anywhere? Like, I don't know, maybe.
Do you know anybody with a water?
No, but I didn't know. I never really knew anybody with a water bed anyway. Like,
if you took a girl home from the bar, okay, and you go into your bedroom, about to do the thing, and you have a water bed, she should run. If you haven't already bolt locked the door, right? That's what I'm saying. There's something really unsettling about them, but now they're mostly gone. I don't know. I was waiting to get my taxes done today, so it's a thought that crossed my mind. But see, you don't know the answer either. You don't know a single person with a water bed. Come on.
No, but like, I don't know that I've ever known a single person with a water bed. Maybe like one.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like a porno thing, probably, or just like some weird, I don't know, hippie. But all right, just a question.
I just picture like a water bed and like lava lamps.
Yeah, and like, a mirror on the ceiling.
Right.
Do you want to get to Julius Randle or Alec Burks or anybody else?
I think that Randle looks fine at 9,200. Doesn't look like the same level of priority to me that RJ Barrett does. And then the rest of these guys, I mean, Mitchell Robinson, Evan Fournier. I mentioned Fournier specifically in either my FanDuel or I think DraftKings tournament plays video. If he plays well, he can get north of 30 minutes. He's averaged 30 minutes per game in the games he's played without Rose and Kemba. He's averaged about 0.81 DraftKings points per minute. I think that Barrett's the clear priority, Randle's second, but it shouldn't shock anyone if, Mitchell Robinson or Fournier come through and have a big game against Washington.
See, Neil Orfield said his older brother had a water bed and a lava lamp when he was a kid. God, that's good stuff. Yeah, I'd have zero interest in that. Zero. But I don't know. Do some research. Get back to me. Let's talk about Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Those guys don't have water beds. They just have good contest, lower management fees than anybody else, great payout structures, and a free month of Awesemo Plus when you use the link down below in the description or the one that Chris is about to throw in the chat right now. All you got to do, sign up using that link. Deposit, I still think it's $10. It could be more, but $10 minimum, and enter a paid contest. When you do that, first of all, they'll email us. We'll hit you back. And we'll get you set up. All of our tools for every single sport, boom bust tool, ownership, player projections, top stack tools for everything else, top driver for NASCAR tool, top golfer, whatever. We have golf, baseball coming up, basketball, hockey, MMA, NASCAR. If I didn't say that already, esports, everything out there. If there's contests, we got content, all the tools, all the articles, everything for free, $90 value entire month. You get that, but then you get $10 in free credit on Yahoo as well. So you deposit 10, you get 10 back, you get a $90 Awesemo Plus Platinum subscription for the entire month. That's all you need to do. And all of our tools you can use for Yahoo as well. I know most of you have already taken advantage of this. If you haven't, do so now because it's legit. It's exactly what a no-brainer is. You would not need a brain to know that this is a good decision to make. Get the $50,000 NBA baller tonight too. Use our tools. Use our tools to take it down. And if you're trying to expedite it, you want to get in quick, take advantage of everything, you can email us at support@awesemo.com. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Got to use the link though. Got to use the link. All right, let's keep it moving here. Next up, we've got the Lakers, God, what a travesty that's become. We got the Lakers and we got the Toronto Raptors. Lakers 8.5-point dogs in this spot. Let's just kick it off, Adam, with the obvious here. LeBron James, one of the many high-priced players on this slate today, questionable, expected to play. Can we keep going back to him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see why not. I don't think he stands out as like substantially different than other guys to pay up for. $10,700 on DraftKings, so $200 more expensive than Durant. I think pretty similar. You know, he's like a 1.5 to 1.6 fantasy point per minute guy without Anthony Davis. Should play 37 minutes or so if this game's competitive. Big if, because the Lakers are absolute garbage. But yeah, like LeBron looks good. Outside of that, I think Westbrook at 6,600 on FanDuel is playable. You probably won't want to watch the game. You'll just, you know, grab a drink and pretend, you know, try and forget about it. But it is a pretty cheap price tag on DraftKings, though. I really see nothing outside of LeBron.
All right, easy enough then. Let's talk about Toronto. I'm going to ask you a question. How concerned are you right now that Fred VanVleet just isn't right? I know we can be like, oh, well, it's hard to speculate on that. You can't really quantify it, but he's been in and out of the rotation. And when he comes back, Nick Nurse plays him 40 minutes a game.
Yeah, I'd actually brought that up with Josh this morning. I think that's like the most difficult thing to deal with in NBA DFS is when you have somebody like VanVleet who, if he plays, you're assuming he's going to play big minutes because he always does. So it's not like you can just like say, oh, well, he's only going to play 30 minutes. He's cheap, but I have no idea how injured he is and how much it's affecting his performance. But I do typically just come back. The two things that play a big role are ownership and salary. And that's, you know, kind of just the case with everybody. But with VanVleet at 7,600 on DraftKings, I kind of don't care that much. If he's playing, I assume he's at least, you know, healthy enough to play, even if he's not at 100%. It's not like you're talking about him at 8,800 where he normally would be priced. Him sitting at 7,600 in a good matchup against the Lakers, I'm willing to take my chances on, you know, his health.
Okay. I guess the question for me, and the Lakers have been awful against opposing backcourts, like all of the
opposing players in general,
for sure. But I'm saying, like, when it comes to back, it's been so bad. I don't know. I feel like the only if I were to play devil's advocate, right? Could you not say, well, you got 11 other games, you got 1,000 other players to choose from at a similar price point, some of them in very, you know, similar spots at similar price points with similar minutes at less ownership or comparable ownership?
Yeah, but like it's not like you have to play VanVleet in every lineup. But
no, of course not.
I just think it, like, yeah, if he were like 8,600 or something, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But basically, it's just like DraftKings was like, okay, well, we'll knock $1,000 off of his price to alleviate any concerns you have about, you know, his injuries.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And he's projected for 17% ownership. It's not like he's getting.
No, he's not 50%. Yeah.
Right.
Blaine, what's up, Blaine? Thanks for the super chat. Said Licorice Pizza has some incredibly funny waterbed content. I haven't seen it. Is that the one where like the 26-year-old woman is with the 15-year-old boy or something and everyone was mad about?
I have no idea.
You know how Twitter gets, right? For some reason, if I just go to that, like the page where it gives you all of the news, it gives me, generally speaking, stuff I have no interest in, but they keep trying to feed it to you. I haven't seen it though. I heard about that movie. If that's not the one you're talking about, yeah, I don't know. And then Olrat says, will Winslow or Dunn play in garbage time, Adam?
Oh yeah, I meant to pull that up. Fortunately with Portland, you don't have to look back very far to find an answer. They lost by 30 to the Knicks on the 16th. Neither one played in garbage time, really. I mean, Chris Dunn played more. Like, Dunn played until the 2-minute and 40-second mark, and he came out. Winslow was done at 7 minutes. So, with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Winslow was also on a minutes limit in that game. So, my guess is Dunn. But, like, true garbage time, you're going to get Blevins, Hughes, Johnson, Brown, and then, like, one other guy. So, it could easily be neither of them.
Outside of Fred, Elijah, Loughy's always outraged about the outrage content that gets sent his way on whatever algorithm. No, I'm not. But there's no doubt that they cater it to just, Like anything that's trending, I guarantee you, if you go into the comments, it's just people wanting to kill each other. Anything that's trending. We all know that. I'm not outraged by it. My eyes are just open. All right. Let's talk about the rest of the Toronto Raptors. Aside from Van Vliet, Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., low 6K, Precious Achiuwa, Scotty Barnes. It is, as you pointed out, it's a good matchup for essentially everybody in this spot. They have one of the higher implied totals on the slate. Do we want to dabble with some of these non-Van Vliet guys?
Yeah, I don't think any of them look as good as Van Vliet, but 8,900 for Siakam, 77 for Barnes, 62 for Trent. All of those are reasonable price points. Precious Achiuwa went back to the bench last game, still played about 26 minutes. I don't feel very comfortable in going to him, but 4,400 is not the worst price tag. But I think it's mostly Siakam, Barnes, and Trent is like the next tier for me after Van Vliet.
Okay. How many games we got down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Doing well here. We got, did we do 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Did I forget? Oh, no, there we go. Okay. I was looking at the run sheet. One was on the lower page, so I just missed it. OKC, 16-point dogs against Miami. I mean, what a terrible, you couldn't ask for a terrible spot. And now they could be without SGA, which would make things even worse. Okay. Seeing if any news came in there, but it's for tomorrow.
Nope, just Pistons news.
Yeah, for tomorrow. Let's go SGA in or out. Now, what was he questionable with the same thing last game?
I don't know what he was questionable with. I know he was questionable.
But it does make sense that with how bad this team is, that you could just kind of sit him if you wanted to. But it is the same ankle, Adam.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised he played last game. For now, I'm assuming he plays today, but I don't know. It feels like a true toss-up to me. If he's in, I don't really have much interest in this team at all. It's a brutal matchup at Miami. Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, is very good. He has a high ceiling, but there's just so many guys that I think look a little bit better in that price range that it's tough for me to get there. If this were like a 6 or a 7 game slate and you were getting SGA at no ownership, it would be one thing. But on slates of this size, you can typically just, go down like to the second best tier and get low enough ownership because ownership just gets spread out enough that it's tough for me to get to SGA. Baisley at 5,800, playing a lot of minutes looks okay. But if SGA is out, then you do get some value opening up here. Trey Mann is more productive when he plays without Gilgeous-Alexander on the floor. He's 5,200. He'd be likely to give you 30 plus minutes at increased production. Teo Maledon is $3,600. He would likely play a lot of minutes if Gilgeous-Alexander's out. Lindy Waters has been about a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy. He should play more, if Gilgeous-Alexander is out. So I think those three in particular look better to me if Gilgeous-Alexander sits.
Okay. Miami doesn't look all right. So if we're talking about blowouts, this is a real legitimate concern here. But here's the caveat. Jimmy Butler's questionable, PJ Tucker's questionable, to a lesser extent or to a lesser impact, Caleb Martin's questionable. And Jimmy Butler did not go through practice. So if Butler's out, and let's just say PJ Tucker's either out or in, we can discuss both of those. Then maybe the blowout factor isn't quite as important for a couple of these guys in the rotation tonight.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, OKC is still very bad, but
Well, I was thinking, like, would Duncan Robinson not at least get some more usage in a spot like this at almost minimum salary where you're not really risking a ton to get there?
Yeah, and I think like if you get 2 or 3 of Butler, Martin, and Tucker out, I think it does help to solidify Robinson's minutes because, the issue this year has sort of just been that you can't count on him to play more than 20 to 24 minutes. But he is very, very cheap. And I think that even if they're in, I would throw Robinson into like that same bucket as Denny Avdia and Kispert, guys that are just a little bit less expensive than they should be. Same can be said for PJ Tucker at 3,400. But as guys start getting ruled out, Robinson does start to look a little bit better.
I remember when the Top Shot streams used to have like professional NBA players on.
Yeah.
Duncan Robinson was on there and he was really cool. But the host was like, so he said something like, what did it take to become an elite NBA player? And Duncan Robinson is like, whoa. I wouldn't call myself elite, but he had that stretch. Was it 2 years ago where he couldn't miss. Do you remember that stretch where he was like, everyone's looking at him like, all right, this is the next great 3-point shooter. He's still a good 3-point shooter, but fall from grace there from where he was during that month or two where he literally couldn't miss.
Yeah, it's funny because that stretch overlapped with when Davis Bertans couldn't miss. And
yeah, that's right.
So there was always kind of like a back and forth about, comparing those two to each other. And then they're still kind of comparable, just not in a good way.
Andrew Williams, thanks for the super chat, man. Who's your best value play and pay up options on DraftKings and FanDuel? Now, before I ask you, before I throw it to you, I just want to say the caveat here is that the best value play could absolutely change within the next hour or leading up to lock. Very much so. So if you're locking it in now, just know that things can change considerably. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that the best value play is not even
a top 3.
Somebody we've talked about yet.
Yeah.
But in terms of best value on DraftKings, I think it's either Goga if he plays, or Claxton at 3,400. Top pay up option, I think it's very close, but between a lot of guys. Alex has Jokic projected about 2 points higher than anybody else, so I guess I would go there. Luka being second on FanDuel. Top pay up option I think is either Jokic or Durant. Top value. Maybe Chris Dunn at 3,500, Alexander Walker at 3,500.
Okay. And that obviously could change, right? Like your top pay up could definitely be James Harden if Joel Embiid, who is a game time decision, I think he plays, but you never know, ends up being out, right? So we'll see. We'll pay close attention to that. Live Before Lock with Greg and Eric coming up after us, so don't go anywhere. And they'll take you all the way through 7:30 as well, which, they're going to have some fun. They're going to talk about a lot of stuff, Yahoo, and a whole lot more. But also, like when Josh and I did it the other week, it was insane after lock. A lot of decisions had to be made leading up to 7:30. So you're going to, it doesn't end. It doesn't end at 7 p.m. lock, especially there's only one 7 p.m. game today, and that's Dallas and Philly. It's the only one. So you get a lot of news after lock, worth sticking around for. All right. Where are we at? Oh, here we go. This will be fun. Indiana and Houston. Now, you said earlier, like right when we started the show and I was asking about Goga, that if he's in, he's a good value. They're 4-point favorites against Houston. This total is up like 7. I think I saw it at 237 somewhere earlier. It's at 243.5 now. Just continues to cruise upwards. Let's see where is it still 243.5. So Isaiah Jackson's out. Then you got guys like Jalen Smith, Terry. Let's start here. If Goga's out, does Terry Taylor get more of those minutes? Because he's actually played a decent amount of minutes lately, and Duarte's questionable as well.
Yeah, if Goga's out, I think Terry Taylor plays a good amount. He basically played every minute that Isaiah Jackson was not on the floor last game. You got 21 minutes from Jackson, 27 from Taylor. If Goga's out, I would expect Taylor to play more. He's 3,200. That would end up looking like one of the best cheap point per dollar values, I think. And then you would also get, I think, more solidified minutes for Jalen Smith. One way or the other, Indiana's typically been finding ways to get him to like 26 minutes or so. But if Goga's out, I would expect that Smith, can play even more with Jackson out as well.
All right, so let's work our way through this then. How interested are you in Goga right now if he plays, and Jalen Smith as well?
Very. If Goga plays, I would assume you're getting at least like 20 to 22 minutes from him, which at 3,400 in this spot would make him look very, very good. Jalen Smith, I would expect you're getting upper 20s. 5,700 against Houston looks good for him too, over a fantasy point per minute guy this year. So I like Smith one way or the other. It's just if Goga's out, he looks a little bit better. And then Terry Taylor, I think, is heavily dependent on Goga.
Okay. What else do we want to talk about for the Pacers if everyone who's questionable ends up playing today?
I think the $7,700 price tag on Brogdon is pretty decent. I would rather get to RJ Barrett for $200 more, but I do think Brogdon's in that next tier. He's only getting 6% ownership. He's got a very good matchup against Houston, likely to be a very high scoring game. And mid-20s usage and assist percentage playing with Halliburton. So I do like Brogdon as a mid-range play.
Okay. On the other side, you have Houston. The only real pending news here is Eric Gordon. That's it. But like I said, just a huge total that continues to inflate. Kevin Porter Jr. is pretty inexpensive. Jayshawn Tate's, mid 4K. The Pacers front court has been giving up big numbers to opposing centers. You have Christian Wood at a low 7K price point. What do you think of Houston today? Do you think there's any spots we can get to here in the event that maybe it ends up being a really high scoring game with just a ton of points?
Yeah, I think they're more favorably priced than they have been in a while. Kevin Porter's still sitting there at 6,400. We have him projected to be the highest owned guy from Houston on DraftKings. I think that's a perfectly fine price tag for him. But then you have Jayshawn Tate at $4,600. I mentioned him on FanDuel in my tournament plays video as well. He's averaged 0.96 FanDuel points per minute when he's played with Porter and Christian Wood this year. He's averaging like 26 and a half minutes per game in those games. Assuming he gets around 26 minutes here, he should be able to pay off the salary. Christian Wood is at one of the cheaper price tags we've seen from him in a while at 7,300. Only has center eligibility on DraftKings, which does hurt your ability to get to him, but it's still a really good spot. I still like Wood quite a bit. Green at 5,800 looks fine as well. So I think, Kevin Porter and Christian Wood are the two that I feel the most confident in, but I like the value that Jayshawn Tate offers as well.
All right. Scarecrow with the super chat. Thanks, man. Duncan Robinson, hashtag Michigan GOAT. Just, super chatting us just to say that, just to get the word out. All right. Allrat 14 using that free super chat, 6-month member. What's up, man? Half a year. Should I switch back to Bill W for Adam's AA problem? He was Bill W. He was Bill W on the day that you had imbibed a bit before the show.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. All right. Do you want to wrap up Indy and Houston? Anything else here worth talking about?
No, that's all that I have. Somebody asked about Jalen and Goga starting together. I wouldn't expect them to.
Okay. 4 games to go. With that sidebar, Chris. Pelicans, San Antonio. New Orleans today, 237 total. They're 2-point dogs. I actually want to kick it off here in the front court. We can get to Nickeil Alexander-Walker and a few of these other guys in a second. But what do you think about Joval today? Is that price just too – because the matchup is spectacular against a Spurs team that's good at limiting three-point attempts but cannot defend in the paint, at least has struggled to mightily against bigs, both as scoring and rebounding. But Joval's price has come up now, and that's kind of tough on this slate.
Yeah, exactly. You're never going to be upset that you get to Joval in a tournament lineup because he certainly has the ability to just destroy an $8,400 price tag, even though it is a little bit overpriced for his median projection. The thing that makes it difficult on this slate, though, is just the size of the slate and the fact that so many players are underpriced. I don't remember which team or player I'd said it about earlier, but I know I'd already said it once where, if this were a smaller slate, then it's easier to say, okay, well, I'll overpay a little bit for Joval because he's not going to get much ownership and he can have a massive game. But on a slate of this size, there's going to be guys that are priced more favorably than Joval that are also low owned and you can get to. So that makes it pretty tough. The only spot from the Pels that I do really like is McCollum at 9,300. I think that's a very, very good price tag. He's extremely productive without Brandon Ingram. The offense should, run through him, and this should be a high-scoring game. So I do really like CJ McCollum.
Free super chats rolling in. Poppy Rocks, member for 5 months. Become a member, man. Join the team. He said, love the show. Keep it up. Thanks, bro. Very nice of you to use that free super chat on some kind words here. I guess outside then of CJ McCollum, outside of McCollum, you've got essentially nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like Joval, Jackson Hayes, maybe if you're playing 150 lineups, you get a little bit, but in terms of priorities and guys that I actively want to get to, it's just CJ McCollum.
Okay. And yeah, I know Alexander Walker's on Utah now. My mind went blank. I was trying to do 3 things at once and pull up stats, but thank you for the correction. So with the Spurs then, DeJounte Murray, expensive among many other top tier players, still one of the, more elite triple double threats from game to game. And Keldon Johnson's just knocking down. This guy's dialed in right now. But again, when you get to some of these price points, where do we have to hit
In their last game, he started and played 28 minutes. If you take him out, maybe you're getting you're probably getting some more Josh Primo. Lonnie Walker played 22 minutes in that game. I would expect him to get back up to 28, 30 if Richardson is out. You should still get a ton of minutes from Johnson. Devin Vassell.
Hold on. Oh, wait, hold on. Are we good? Chris, are we good? Everyone's saying that we're good? Okay. Apparently all the sound went out. So we're good. We're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there is just the potential for there to be a lot of minutes to go around for the wings on San Antonio, particularly if Richardson's out. If Richardson is in, you do still have a path to success for guys like Richardson at 4,200, for Lonnie at 4,900, but they don't look nearly as appealing as if Lonnie doesn't look nearly as appealing as if Richardson's out. Richardson obviously looks more appealing if he's in, but the main priorities here, I think, Pirtle looks decent, but just kind of similar to Christian Wood, where I think he's a good center play, but not anything I'm building around. DeJounte Murray is the clear priority for me at 10-6 on DraftKings. He's also projected to be a bit under-owned on FanDuel. And one thing that I think is worth noting, like if you are somebody that plays FanDuel a lot, you probably notice it. DeJounte Murray's seen a huge bump in price, but that's not something that should necessarily deter you from getting there. It's not, game log watching or chasing box scores or anything like that, because he was wildly underpriced for a long time, just coming in at like $9,500, $9,600.
Yeah.
So him getting up to 10,800 is just a correction to where he's less underpriced now, but it's not that he's doing anything unsustainable and like 9,500 was the correct price and now it jumped. They just finally fixed it somewhat. So I do really, really like getting to DeJounte Murray regardless of site.
For everybody saying that they missed a lot, I don't think it was a minute, but for them saying it was a lot, if you were to say, are there any priorities from San Antonio, yes or no? And the guys that you want to get to would be these guys in tournaments, just real quick for anyone that missed it. Yeah,
the priorities, DeJounte Murray. Jakob Poeltl looks fine. Do keep an eye on Josh Richardson's status, because with San Antonio also missing Keita Bates-Diop and Doug McDermott, if he's out, it does solidify minutes for guys like Devin Vassell, Lonnie Walker, and potentially a very cheap Josh Primo.
All right, 3 to go. Hit that thumbs up. All right, so we need 135 to get us to 500. We've got 1,900 people watching. Very doable. Very doable. Take that 2 seconds, 1 second, click that thumbs up. That's all you got to do. Appreciate you in advance. I know I can rely on you guys to get there. More free super chats rolling in. El Negro Loco iced up with the sick badge. I'm just here to say waterbeds rule. See, I don't know, man. I don't think I could get in on that life, but you had one as well. I saw you say that with a lava lamp. I think
he was a black light.
Oh, he was a black light. Yeah, listen, man. Nobody wants a black light in their room, especially a single person. Fruity Pebbles or Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Free super chat from Steve McGee. Glad you're doing this on a 12-game slate, Steve. Thank you. Definitely Cinnamon Toast Crunch, hands down. I mean, it's one of the greatest cereals ever created.
I've maybe had them combined like twice.
I would never combine them.
No.
I know. I know. Twice. Yeah, I love cereal. I've been doing the healthier stuff lately, but
yeah, I mean, normally with cereal, I'm like Cheerios, Raisin Bran, Life.
Life is good.
I don't know that it even exists anymore, but
it gets soggy too quick.
Yeah, but it's good when it's soggy too.
Oh no. you gotta get that down fast. All right. Josh trying to stir up trouble. No, Josh, I'm saying you don't. Never mind. There's something I so badly that I want to talk about that I had a conversation with Josh before a show the other day, but and I'm willing to go too far. I just think this is like past too far. So I still haven't.
Are we like combining black lights and his hand washing and?
Yeah. I'll tell you, man. I want to so bad, but I can't. And he's trying to get me just to do it because he knows it'll be a disaster. But it's not about me. It's about him. Clippers and Utah. Jordan said, don't do it. Jordan could not be working and still get worried that I'm going to say something bad. All right. Clippers and Utah. Josh just called me a coward. It's not happening. I don't buy into peer pressure. All right. Clippers and Utah Jazz. Let's rip through the Clippers here and then get to Utah, and then a couple games to go. We'll turn this one over. I'll just hand it over to you. I don't really think there's much to get to at all from LA today.
Yeah, I don't think there's much either. The only thing that looks somewhat enticing to me is Reggie Jackson at 7,600. I think he's somebody you can use like as a Fred VanVleet pivot, for example, in that price range, only projected for about 4% ownership. If this game's competitive, he's likely to play into the mid 30s. He's a little bit over a fantasy point per minute guy, but far from a priority for me. And beyond that, I have nothing from the Clippers.
All right. Utah Jazz. This is where it begins to get interesting. Clarkson, Alexander Walker, Conley, Gobert, even Hernan Gomez. Clarkson's always a fun one because like the usage goes up, that, he's just going to chuck. And it's always a lot better when you get there before the price goes up with Mitchell missing more than a couple games. Cause then you just paying $7K for Clarkson is usually not something I enjoy doing, but 5,800 is just one of those price points now that makes too much sense to get away from.
Yeah, really tough to get away from. Clarkson leads the team with 1,041 minutes without Mitchell on the floor this year, 30% usage, 1.04 DraftKings points per minute, 14.5% assist percentage. Conley is second in 843 minutes, 1.03 DraftKings points per minute, makes him look like a strong value in that price range as well. Rudy Gobert actually has a 20.8% usage rate without Mitchell on the floor, which is worth noting because he's one of the most efficient players in the NBA. He's averaged 1.26 DraftKings points per minute without Mitchell out there. So I think those three are the three guys that I feel the most confident in, that look the best. But then you get those value options too that are getting some ownership, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker at only $3,100, Juancho Hernan-Gomez at $3,200 after he started the last game, Rudy Gay is at $4K. I think most people thought he was going to start last game. He didn't. He only played like 18 minutes. If he starts, I think you go to Gay. But if Hernan-Gomez starts, he's very risky, but you're still probably talking about, low to mid 20s at 3,200. And then similarly with Alexander Walker, you're going to need his scoring role off the bench. I would expect that he gets low to mid 20s in minutes as well. Played about 22 minutes last game. That did include a couple minutes of garbage time, but Donovan Mitchell was also in last game. So I think that Alexander Walker looks like one of the better values tonight.
For sure. And yeah, without Mitchell, without Bogdanovich, how many are you willing to play in the same lineup? And usually I won't ask you this unless it's a question that I know we're going to get. And this is a 12-game slate with three guys on the same team projected for 20+% ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to 3. I'm certainly not going higher than that on a 12-game slate. But when you think about the pricing, like if you play Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Conley, and Clarkson, you're only using, $13,000 or something like that, or $16,000 or something like that. So you're not using a lot of your cap. They project as 3 of the best, values relative to salary. So I don't mind getting to 3 of them. 2 probably would make me feel a little bit better, but basically just given the fact that Alexander Walker is minimum salary, I don't mind going to 3.
Okay. 2 games to go. Chicago and Phoenix. Chicago Bulls, road dogs against the Suns. Do you think Levine's price warrants some attention today, just given that it continues to sit in that mid 7K range?
Yeah, I think he's another, VanVleet pivot. Yeah. There's nothing.
Or Barrett pivot too, right? I mean, they're all, yeah.
Yeah. 8% projected ownership coming to Levine. I think that he looks fine there. It is a tough matchup against Phoenix, but the game is expected to be high scoring. Levine also has shooting guard and small forward eligibility, which is nice. So I like that price tag. And then similarly on Vooch and DeRozan, I think the price tags have just come down a little bit to where I am interested in getting to those guys at low ownership. Vooch, for example, is one of the guys that I would get to before Joe Val in that price range because he is a little bit less expensive. So I don't think any of them individually are, guys that I end up with massive amounts of exposure to, but I do think that within any given lineup, all 3 of these pieces are just appealing tournament plays.
Blah IDK with the most egregious question I've ever heard: milk or cereal first? I mean, cereal. What are you, a Neanderthal, dude?
Yeah.
Milk or cereal first? I've never met, I don't think, a single person that that goes milk first. And I suppose if I did, we would no longer talk.
Yeah, no, that's weird.
Like, I need to know the ratio. When, you know what I mean? Like, you need, that's craziness, man. Crazy. I mean, who in the world would do that? You threw up my train of thought off. Devin Booker for the Phoenix Suns, 9,100. So many good players on this slate. Do you prioritize him at all?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's really inexpensive, still playing without Chris Paul. Just, looks very good. He's getting 11% ownership. That's just a function of how many good plays there are on this slate. You can't roster, every player above 9K that you want to in a given lineup. So, yeah, I think Booker looks great. He's very comparable to CJ McCollum, I think, a little bit cheaper. So I really like him. JaVale McGee in tournaments, I think, is okay. Obviously, you're just hoping to get lucky on getting a few extra minutes from someone that averages 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. Cameron Payne, DeAndre Ayton both look fine as well. I mentioned Payne specifically on FanDuel in the Tournament Plays video earlier. Not a particularly high probability type play, but still averaging over a fantasy point per minute in the 5 games he's played with Booker and without Paul. He's averaging about 30.5 minutes per game. So I don't mind getting there. And then the one big piece of news we have, or that we're waiting on, is Jay Crowder is questionable. If he's in, then I'm not really interested in him. But if he's out, you have 4K Torrey Craig, who you shouldn't expect him to do what he did last game, but he certainly can play 30 plus minutes again at $4,000 and look like a pretty good value.
Ross K said, "Do you wipe before you shit too?" And no, El Negro Loco. Ketchup on eggs is nowhere close to the level of absurdity.
No, definitely not. No,
I mean, what? You might not like ketchup on eggs, but you come around my way, that's pretty common. Let's not get out of control here. All right. Last question, Adam, and then we'll close this game out. Do you drink the milk in the cereal afterwards?
Like 50-50.
Really? I'm like 100% yes. Unless I've over poured, then it's like some of it.
Yeah. So I drink milk just in general. So like a lot of times, like I'll have milk with my cereal. So there's no real reason for me to drink the cereal milk.
Wait, whoa, back up. Hold on. You have like a glass of milk with your cereal that has milk in it?
Yeah.
No, you don't. Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh my God. Do you, what, let me just, so what, like, will you take a bite of cereal and then take a sip of milk?
I mean, yeah, like if I just.
That's crazy. Tell me I'm not the crazy one here. That is insane. That is so great. Oh shit. That's a great way to bring this show to a close. We'll wrap it up with, I can't look at chat there. I can't believe you do that.
Eric said fire at him.
I can't look at chat right now.
I had never really thought twice about it. Like as I said it, I was like, that sounds kind of weird. But like,
where did you learn that?
I don't know. I like drinking milk, and if I'm eating cereal, I'm still probably drinking milk.
That is fucking awesome. What percent milk guy are you?
Skim.
Okay. Yeah, I'm skimmer 1%.
Yeah. I mean, and that was kind of just like a lifestyle change. Like I was always, like 2%. And then I was like, I could just not.
Yeah, I just can't imagine like, All right. Boston and Sacramento, live before lock coming up right after this. Just talk to me about both sides of this one. I am done. I'm done.
What
Kings
game were we on?
And Celtics. Kings and Celtics.
Yeah, so Boston across the board, I think looks good.
You didn't think it was weird until now.
Literally had never thought about it until I heard the words come out of my mouth. So yeah, I think Boston across the board looks good. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both pulling double-digit ownership, but they also are cheaper than usual. They have a very, very good matchup against Sacramento. So I like getting to those guys, but also I think Smart, Horford, Robert Williams are all Pretty decent tournament options as well. I think that I'll just end up with a good amount of exposure to Boston in general. On the other side, we have De'Aaron Fox questionable. That has an impact because you would expect more minutes for Davion Mitchell at 3,800, probably more minutes for DiVincenzo, but also more production for Domantas Sabonis, who looks fine at his price anyway. He's 8,700 on DraftKings, I think 8,100 on FanDuel. Not a bad option regardless, but if Fox is out, I would expect him to produce at a higher rate as well.
All right. Fun show, man. We got in.
Yeah, for sure.
We got out. We're on time. Live before lock. Eric and Greg coming up next. Appreciate you guys as always. 8 likes to 500. So, I mean, at least for that milk take, we need 100 likes for that. Greatest thing I've ever heard. Follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS, me at Loughy_D. Stick around. Live before lock, taking you up to lock and then through 7:30. We'll see you back here for the next one. Peace.
It's always good. It's nice to be told that. I'm not gonna lie. I am. Greg's hosting. Yep. Yeah.
What is going on, guys? We're closing out the week in style. 12-game NBA slate. We're going to be breaking down everything that there is to know and a lot of injuries that Eric and I are going to have to go through. We're sponsored by Yahoo, and as you guys should know, the post-lock show is back. We've got a full slate, so Eric and I will be sticking around for 30 minutes after lock. We'll talk about some prop bets. We'll talk about Yahoo. Maybe we'll be sweating whatever goes on in the college games. We'll see, but for now, there is a lot of injuries to break down. We just had Taylor Horton-Tucker ruled out. That's not going to be massively significant, but the players that are currently listed as questionable on the injury report: Joel Embiid, LeBron James, Trae Young, Jimmy Butler, John Morant, officially listed as questionable, but apparently on track to play, so that's not a concern. SGA is questionable. De'Aaron Fox is questionable. Goga Bitadze, Jay Crowder questionable. Eric, what do you make of all these injuries?
We're going to be late swapping. It's going to be a day of lots of late swap. I've got some friends coming over a little bit later here this evening. Our good friend Jordan Klein will be here soon. Hello, shout out to my friend there in the chat. But it's a night where if you're going to hang out with your friends and family, you're probably going to be on your computer a lot. So just be aware of that for the next 4 hours of your life. That's going to be a very, very important part to playing this slate. I'm going to be back and loading my lineups quite a bit with some Davion Mitchell, with some guys in the Sacramento spot, Domantas Sabonis. I think just kind of having that in store in the chamber. And then as news starts rolling in, we start breaking off and figuring out where we want to go with certain plays, because, obviously if Joel Embiid gets ruled out from the get-go, yeah, you're going to have some early exposure. But as it stands right now, I think he plays. I think LeBron plays. I think we're going to have to be waiting on the Miami situation, the Shays situation. That'll start at 8:00 Eastern time. And then the big one for me is just going to be if De'Aaron Fox gets out, I'm going to have all of these players just kind of locked and loaded in that game, and I won't have to adjust much. But if he gets ruled in, I'm going to try to find ways to break off some of those plays in that little in that LAC Utah spot. I might be a little bit chalkier than I would normally want to be.
What the hell went on the show before? I didn't know. I was building shelves.
Oh, dude.
I don't know what it is, but there's Adam's a cat, Adam milk. People want to bring
out. So here's the take. Let me break this down. I'm going to preface this to you. Well, first of all, Adam kills people. So we've learned that today. So that's cool.
Okay. I thought that was a given though, wasn't it?
If you were putting milk on cereal, would you in a million years want a glass of milk to go with it?
Well, I'm lactose intolerant and have digested this.
Well, there's that.
Oh my, that would go so poorly for me.
Yeah, no. So you definitely don't want that, is what you're getting at. Now, that's the way a normal person should be rationalizing this, is that I already have milk in this lovely bowl of cereal. My accessory for it is coffee, is orange juice, is other things, anything on planet Earth. I don't give a shit. Scotch, anything but another glass of milk. That is just nonsensical, incorrect, and Adam kills people.
Yeah, well, that may very well be true, but maybe that's why Adam's bones are so healthy. Have you ever seen him wearing a sling on a show? No, because he's got healthy bones. Got a man who takes care of himself. He gets his calcium. I've never seen Adam with a broken arm before. It's because of the amount of milk he ingests. We've got some news that just came in on the Los Angeles Lakers. And I didn't think the Taylor Horton-Tucker news was going to be relevant. But in addition to Taylor Horton-Tucker getting ruled out, Carmelo Anthony and Wayne Ellington are also both going to be unavailable. So a couple of things here. First, are you just assuming LeBron plays? I know his list is questionable, but this team is going, nowhere for the rest of the regular season. I think there is a chance he starts to miss games. How are you interpreting first the LeBron James questionable injury designation alongside all these other guys that have just been rolled out?
Yeah, Adam and I did the injury report. I subbed in for you today to do that. And we talked through the fact that it's I can't imagine LeBron James is going to go over to Canada and not play basketball here today. But these other guys, sounds like they're sick, and I'm assuming they all traveled. I don't really know what to say regarding it, because Malik Monk isn't exactly cheap. He's 5,800 comparatively on this slate. We're going to have Austin Reeves and Stanley Johnson as guys who play a lot more minutes, but they don't really do anything that particularly well on from a fantasy basis on a floor. Avery Bradley is a guy who's going to have to play some more minutes now, 3,200. DJ Augustine's joined this rotation. I mean, these are just very bad fantasy point per minute guys, but I will say LeBron James, he's going to be the only hope that they really have to keep this competitive. Maybe it makes Russell Westbrook go up a tick, but he's been so bad and he's still not cheap enough at 8,300 over on DraftKings. So for me, it's kind of as weird as it is, that news doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for me.
Yeah, I don't think it does for DFS either. I mean, Malik Monk is somewhat appealing, but it's not like all of a sudden Wenyen Gabriel, Stanley Johnson, Avery Bradley, DJ. I think the Lakers are probably going to play a hot hand approach. I don't doubt that one of these cheap guys will churn out a pretty decent game. I just have no clue if it's going to be Howard, Reeves, Gabriel, Stanley Johnson, Avery Bradley, DJ Augustine. And I kind of think that we're just throwing darts blindly if we're taking any of these guys. I think, Avery Bradley is just as likely to have a decent DFS game tonight as like DJ Augustine. And there's a chance, but on a 12-game slate, I don't think it's a risk that we absolutely have to take for this slate. We do have a super chat here from Teddy Wayman. Teddy saying, thoughts on Jared Butler being a pivot from Walker? So I assume it means Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's going to be one of the more popular plays on today's slate. And just to give you guys some ownership here, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, $3,100 on DraftKings, is projected for 28.4% ownership. Over on FanDuel, 3,500 projected for 14.7% ownership. Is Jared Butler somebody you view as a pivot off of him in any way?
Not in a million years. Like, I know that this goes back to the Trey Murphy III thing where we had him really, really low projected in terms of minutes, but that was also like an 8-game slate. And I felt pretty confident looking at New Orleans that day and having the ability to say, all right, this is kind of worth it because there was nothing down there at 3K, 4K that was overly intriguing. I thought the chalk was pretty volatile. I think that's probably the case again here today, but we're talking about a 12-game slate. We're talking about a lot of news that will roll in. Now, if you were to like out of the middle of nowhere, I do not anticipate this, but out of the middle of nowhere, get a start, that would be the only thing that would really get me to play any amount of him whatsoever. He's just, as it stands right now, he would be like, if you were to rank out what percentile of a play he would be, he's like the bottom 1 percentile play on this kind of a slate.
Yeah, I have Jared Butler projected for around 15 fantasy points, which, if this was a 2 or 3 game slate and we're starved for value, that might seem appealing. Not for today. 12-game slate, there's a lot of guys to get to. Not necessary. So I understand where your thought process is there, Teddy, but that's not the way to go. But just as we're on his question about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I think this is a good point to pick up with the guard position. How do you like Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the whole as a chalky value option?
I don't like him very much. And part of it is that, and we've seen this a lot in recent slates. It happened with Rudy Gay. I think it could happen again today where everybody's looking for value, trying to pinpoint where it is, and it hasn't showed up yet. And Torrey Craig was kind of the guy that we all landed on Wednesday. You and I talked through that situation. It's almost like deja vu to a certain extent. We have another 12-game slate. We have another chalky situation with one particular player from Utah that wasn't necessarily, that wouldn't be on your radar if the value was better. If there was just a target guy that just stood out above the rest, because we got the two guys that I think stand out above the rest on his own team with Clarkson and Conley that I just feel very secure are going to be better off. Like, if you're trying to just say, I want to go stars and scrubs, I'm assuming that this is the way that the slate is going to pan out and I'm going to land on him. I get it. But the boom bust tool is kind of where I just kind of rely on everything. And I look at the boom potential from guys like Clarkson and Claxton and guys like that. I'm more willing to embrace the negative leverage there. With Nickeil Alexander-Walker, there's such a minutes floor out of the middle of nowhere. And I know they're missing a lot of guys. I know that, it's like, oh, well, Eric, I think I could land on him a number of ways. He hadn't been particularly good in New Orleans, hadn't really seen anything. He had one really good game, and you either had it or you didn't there last time out. I think there's a legitimate 15, 16 minutes floor that could exist for him. And, he's projected right now 23 and a half minutes here at Awesemo. I just expect that there's going to be a lot of value that shows up, not just in the next 45 minutes, but in the next hour and a half, 2.5 hours, then I'm just going to like exponentially more than a $3,100 play that the field is going to be on. No matter what news is that comes in, he's still going to be really popular. That's exactly what happened with Rudy Gay. People didn't even react to the fact that he wasn't in that starting lineup, still ended up over 25% owned and everything. And I just think we're going to have much better value, even than what we had outside of just Torrey Craig on Wednesday.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I did well on that slate with Rudy Gay was because I didn't play him. The only reason why, a couple things. First, I uploaded the wrong CSV that night. And then I was like, well, now all my lineups are screwed. I have to take out the chalk players to give myself a chance. And then in addition, people just didn't react to that news. So we're going to go over some of the other potential pivots you like to as a cheap guard. But First, this is unfortunate, but I have to do this. We got a super chat from Miami Mike 305.
Hello, Mike. Hello, Greg. How are you this fine Friday? Have a great weekend. Greg loves this bit so much. It's the greatest thing ever. By the way, Spags is having a child. Congratulations, Spags.
There we go. I hope Miami Mike, you got your money's worth there, because we lost half our audience. But there we go. People should still stick around, like the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because in addition to having to listen to Eric do that, we've got value plays to talk about today. And in particular, if you do not like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Eric, who are the guys you like pivoting on the cheap end to get away from him with?
Well, it's not even on the cheap end. It's not like I'm going to be going to 3,100. I think Claxton, if you're just talking about a guy in the 3K range, I'm a little bit more willing to embrace. Now, center is loaded in terms of where the upside can be. Rudy Gobert is 7,400. Those minutes are going to continue to trend up. You can play a guy like Goga at 3,400 in the event that he's good to play here. I'm more inclined to play some Jokic as one of the guys that I spend up for, just like I'm sure you are, even though I just think there's Christian Wood at 7,300, who I really like to land on. Domantas Sabonis is my favorite tournament play on DraftKings of basically the entire slate, with the opportunity that he could have absent De'Aaron Fox to just run this offense. We've seen in Indiana what he's capable of doing in that role. And I think 8,700, I would just want to land on a lot of it. And ring the gong, Jimmy Butler ruled out. PJ Tucker will play.
Jimmy Butler. So there we go. We're going to go from one Jay Butler to another, because before we got a question about Jared Butler, not something I anticipated us to be talking about, but Jimmy Butler, I thought there was a pretty good chance we were going to talk about. And who knows, maybe because Miami Mike left his super chat, he and made you do that terrible voice you do. It just, Jimmy Butler was like, I can't play on this slate because he's very soft. That probably triggered him. And that's, I don't know what his official injury listing is, but it's probably just doesn't like Eric's jigsaw impression. But anyway, Jimmy Butler upset at Eric, will not play today. You also said PJ Tucker will not play. We've got a very, very favorable matchup for the Miami Heat against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Bam Adebayo is typically the guy who benefits the most in these scenarios. Big usage rate for him when Jimmy Butler's off the court. We'll see increased points per minute in terms of fantasy production. Are you going to be looking to go to Bam, or are there other players here that stand out to you?
Oh my God. Kyle Lowry goes to the top of my board instantly. 6,300 over on DraftKings, right around 5%. He's going to be way more popular than that here going forward. But Kyle Lowry is just started to play more and more minutes here. He was obviously out for that personal reason here. His box score is not going to look all that appealing. The usage has not been there. But again, Jimmy Butler out here. I just think that he's going to be a guy that I just got to get north of on that number. Bam Adebayo going back to, forever ago. The assist rate definitely takes a spike up, but I think with Kyle Lowry on the floor next to him, we've seen that start to come down this season. That's why even in the absence of Jimmy Butler, you haven't seen this massive assist rate that we've seen in previous years when Jimmy Butler's been out and Bam's been active there. I look at basically there's going to be having the conversation like Duncan Robinson is not a very fun roster, but he's 3,300. I think we've got to discuss firing up something there. And then we got Caleb Martin in there. I don't know if it's going to be him necessarily. Probably going to be Max Strus, who's been playing a little bit more minutes for this basketball team. I think it's probably a little bit thin there, but Duncan Robinson, I think at least has some upside. We're 3,300. He goes out and goes 5 for 8 from 3 or something like that. And you could be looking at him being decent value. But for me, I think Kyle Lowry is probably surprisingly enough the guy I get to more of. How about you?
Yeah. So the good news is we have plenty of data and sample size with Jimmy Butler not in the lineup. We only have to go back to 2 games ago to find him when he was out.
You love just bagging on Jimmy Butler.
I'm just telling the truth. He's dealing with an ankle injury now. In the last couple of weeks, he's also had a toe infection. He's had shoulder soreness. He's had a sinus infection, all different ailments that have caused him to miss games. But it's kind of a benefit to us when we're looking at these spots because we kind of have a good idea of what the rotation is going to look like. By the way, I misspoke before. PJ Tucker is in, not out. So we have Oladipo is out, Jimmy Butler is out, but PJ Tucker is in, Caleb Martin is in. Now the minutes, if you look at just this from 2 games ago, exact same injury report. No Jimmy Butler, no Victor Oladipo. Caleb Martin played 0 minutes. We got 25 minutes in the start from Gabe Vincent. We got 37 minutes from Lowry. 33 from Bam. We got 36 from Tyler Hero coming off the bench. Strus, to your point about him playing extended minutes, he played 31 off the bench. So even though Gabe Vincent started, Max Strus ultimately played more than him, 31-25 split. Duncan Robinson only played 16 minutes in that game. Duncan Robinson's a weird one because here's generally how he works. He's make his threes or bust. If he's making his shots, Spoelstra's going to leave him out there. If he's missing his shots, it's going to be Strus and Gabe Vincent playing ahead of him. Now that I just kind of gave you some of those minutes that we saw a couple games ago, does that change your outlook on any of these Miami players?
Yeah, I mean, I literally was talking through it as I was updating the sheet, as I was going back and forth with some of the minutes and carrying it over. That's how come I basically pivoted from saying Caleb Martin to I think Max Strus is going to be your more viable candidate between the two. The Gabe Vincent thing feels a little bit thin for me. We've been seeing a lot more upside for him when you had absent Kyle Lowry and you had him as the starting point guard in that kind of a situation. Less that's really that appealing. 3,900 is still a little bit too high for me, as weird as that might sound, even if you were to get 24, 25 minutes of him here. I mean, he was just, I had him projected for playing like 5 minutes today. And now all of a sudden that's just kind of a guy that I've got to throw some minutes to. But I think just at least the existence of a Caleb Martin. Yeah, he played 0 minutes there, but I mean, we have him projected for 18.5. I think that he probably still sees the floor here. In the absence of Butler, I bet he sees the floor to some extent here, but you do get Markieff Morris. He's a guy who re-entered the rotation here. He's 2 games back now as well, played 17 minutes in those. So that kind of mucks it up even a little bit more in trying to identify Strus or somebody there. Again, Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo, I think they both definitely take a gigantic step up for me, especially on FanDuel. Kyle Lowry's 5,500. He should be, as it stands right now, probably your most owned player over there aside from Jordan Clarkson.
Yep, I have no issue. That Kyle Lowry looks really strong. I'd say the only thing that's a real risk here, and I'm curious how you're going to handle this, the Heat are still 15.5 point favorites. We're at a point in the season where the games are not super significant in terms of seeding or playoff picture. We know the Heat are going to be near the top of the Eastern Conference standings. Do you knock any of the playing time for the Miami Heat players in your projections just because this is a 15.5 point spread?
No, they played Detroit last game. So, I mean, all you have to do is go back to last one. You had 34 minutes out of Kyle Lowry for that, 37 against Minnesota the previous game. So last 2, looks like he's still going to play a larger minutes allotment. We also have to remember he's not necessarily just like playing himself back into shape. I mean, he's an NBA player who, is a week and a half back into it. But as I said, he's just a week and a half back into it. I think they're probably more comfortable giving him more minutes. You could probably say, all right, well, we just want him to run the offense. And he's going to be a guy come playoff time where alongside Jimmy Butler, we're going to stagger it maybe a little bit more along with Bam and figure it out that way. I mean, they're going to share the floor a ton together because they just play these guys massive minutes together. But Kyle Lowry, I have no problems, no minutes concerns.
Got a question in our premium Discord channel. This is from 024631. I assume 024630 is already taken. He's asking us, how should I backload my lineups? Should I go at least 3 lineup spots from the last game? Rashawn Holmes out for the rest of the season. What a weird situation that's been. Just for personal reasons. I don't know why they didn't just trade him at the deadline. That aside, I'll reread the question. How should I backload my lineups? Should I leave at least 3 lineup spots from the late game? Eric, with so many players on the injury report, how are you going to be approaching this slate? We do usually talk quite a bit about late swapping.
Yeah, so it's nice. This slate is particularly great because we'll do the half-hour Yahoo show. There's only one game, Dallas and Philadelphia. So I kind of have my exposures figured out. Harden, I like a lot as a spend up at guard, but Joel Embiid is a guy that is going to show up in a couple lineups for me as well. And so I'm basically just kind of focused in on who out of that game I'm going to have. I talked about how I'm kind of staggered. I've got my lineups already set up. I just stacked up the last 2 games of the slate that start at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm just going to play the late swap game throughout the entire night. I'm going to, because like right now, I mean, this lineup, if you're hand building out a lineup, sure, you can do whatever you want, set it, forget it. If you're just going to hand build one, just have your latest spots there. But I'm going to re-crunch as the games are progressing throughout the entire night. I have a dummy in that just has all the 10 p.m. Eastern games. And as it progresses, I'm just going to scatter in the players from the next wave of games, mainly because I just want to be paying attention to as much swappability as I can, be able to react to some news here. Obviously, the Jimmy Butler news was huge. but we're still waiting on SGA on the other side of that game. If he plays, this could definitely be more competitive. If he doesn't, there's at least value that exists from everybody on OKC, as gross as it might sound and as tough of a matchup as it is. But I'm just kind of got all my lineups stacked to that back end game, and I'm just going to bleed players into my lineups as the night goes on.
We did get a minor piece of news here. We've got Eric Gordon. He is out due to an illness. So with Eric Gordon not in the mix today, I know you'd mentioned liking Jalen Green before. I think this only solidifies his minutes potential for, I mean, I can't say the usage is going to go up that significantly because it's not like Eric Gordon has played a big role in the offense, but I feel really good about Jalen Green's minutes now. Does this change anything on your outlook of him?
Oh, I like getting to both him. Kevin Porter Jr. is the priority, I think, for everybody, but don't sleep on Jalen Green. I think we've talked about him a lot in recent weeks, just because he's somebody that can spike massive usage. I mean, he has exceeded 20% usage now every single game since March 2nd. So there's a massive opportunity that we have there. And he played 47 minutes in that game, ironically enough, against Utah. I mean, Jalen Green, rookies get better as it goes along. Anybody who enters a new job is going to understand you're not going to be perfect right from the get-go. And especially a guy like Jalen Green, who did play at least professional caliber players last year in the G League. This is a massive step up going into the NBA, and he's got really no supporting cast around him. But at least he's out there willingly shooting. At least he's playing a lot of minutes, and he's going to be really low owned compared to Kevin Porter Jr. So I think in tournaments, it's always a guy that it's not like I'm going to take some egregiously large stand on him on a 12-game slate, but somebody will definitely show up in lineups, especially against a Pacers team.
All right. So we now are caught up on questions. We're caught up on all the super chats. We're caught up on news. So let's get back to guard. And before something breaks again, Eric, who are the players that are the highest priority guard options for you? So you said you're a little lighter on Nickeil Alexander-Walker than the field. Who are the point guards and shooting guards you currently have the most exposure to?
Yeah, Jordan Clarkson is unavoidable for me on every site. I think 30%. I get a feeling that it's going to be a lot higher than that on DraftKings, because what happens on some of these slates is there's always like the one or two players that you want to try to find that freebie for. And it feels like Jordan Clarkson is going to end up being that guy at 5,800. He gets all of that second unit run, plays big minutes then alongside Mike Conley as well. Mike Conley is a guy that I'm going to have just a little bit less of, but is still projecting out really, really nicely for me. I think those are two guys that I'm just willing to play more of. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I just think is a very volatile piece. And at 3,100, I don't know if 24 burns me even in that spot on a 12-game slate. So, I mean, maybe I would take that if I had shares of him at that number. But I think that there's such a floor there, the same way that there was for Rudy Gay, that if people want to jam him at 28%, I'll just take the more comfortable plays that I know get a lot of minutes, that I know exceed a fantasy point per minute, absent of Donovan Mitchell. They just make much, much more solid plays. I think the mid-range is fantastic on this slate. You can go stars and scrubs if you want to, but I think the mid-range is really, really populated with strong plays, and Clarkson and Conley jump right to the top of the board for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, Loughy is a very, very high priority play now, and I'm curious to see where his ownership ends up at. We haven't had an ownership update since Jimmy Butler was ruled out, but we look at Kyle Lowry. I personally have Kyle Lowry projected for over 40 fantasy points now. Mm-hmm. He's $6,300 on DraftKings. He's $5,500 on FanDuel. He was already a good play on FanDuel.
I have 100% of him in 150 lineups on FanDuel right now. I don't know if I'm even going to switch it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. At 5,500 is a fairly egregious price point, and now we're taking Butler out of the mix. So this is somebody who is expected to be a chalk play with the assumption that Jimmy Butler is playing at the time. So hard to avoid Kyle Lowry right now. Play him in cash games. I think that he's somebody you should absolutely be playing in cash games. Another guy who's going to be a popular play that I think we should hit on here is Fred VanVleet. And this Lakers team gives zero shits about the defensive end of the court. Offense, they don't really care that much either, but at least LeBron's out there stat padding. Defense, this team is playing like 5-on-4, 5-on-3. A couple guys are cherry picking back on offense. This is about as easy a matchup as teams could have right now. And Fred VanVleet, he's dealt with his fair share of injuries, knee soreness in the second half of the season, mostly because Nick Nurse was playing him 42 minutes a game for a 2-month stretch in the middle of the year. But now we have Fred VanVleet, I assume, starting to get a little bit healthier, and the price tag has come down. I love the matchup and the salary. Another chalk piece that I think is kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, I like him too, but we just got some massive news. So Joel Embiid's playing, that's great, but Trae Young ruled out, and that's going to change this entire slate. Like, I don't even know. Like, Fred VanVleet's a good play. I don't know if there's really anything to add outside of like maybe he's hurt, but also the price consideration. He's too cheap. He's playing a lot of minutes. So he eventually is going to feel better, and you're going to need him in your lineups in one of these spots. So a little bit too low of ownership. I agree with you there.
All right, so let's hit on the Atlanta Hawks now. Difficult matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies, and they are not going to have Trae Young in the mix. In addition to not having Trae Young, John Collins remains out. He had that just ridiculously gruesome finger injury where his ring finger is the size of his other 4 fingers combined. But Danilo Gallinari will play. That's not the ring finger. That's the pinky finger.
I know. Well, I have a ring on, and I was like thinking about it, and it just made me hurt thinking about it.
All right. I think you just don't know which finger is which. So the Atlanta Hawks, there's no John Collins, there's no Trae Young, but like I said, Danilo Gallinari will play. He was listed as questionable. Who soaks up the point guard minutes, and where's the usage going?
The usage is going to Bogdanovic, so that's cool. Bogdanovic is going to be a guy that I get to a scary amount of. I'm going to get to a scary amount of my boy Kevin Huerter, probably on FanDuel, less so on DK. 5,300, but DeAndre Hunter is going to play a boatload of minutes here as well. I'm just kind of running everything on off court here with Trae off the floor this season, but the obvious freebie that as long as he's in the starting lineup that has to play a ton of minutes is Delon Wright. I mean, Delon Wright has been the guy that we've been able to rely on in these situations. I just find him unavoidable here on this slate now. So when I was talking about balanced, well, yeah, balanced within reason now, because I think we just got a guy that in Delon Wright, so long as he's starting, that is going to play a ton of minutes. And I feel pretty confident about Bogdanovic, probably my second guy on the board there. DeAndre Hunter, probably on DraftKings being number 3, and then Huerter at 4.
Yeah, I'm pulling some of the on-off court numbers now for the Atlanta Hawks to really see how is this impacted in terms of just total usage for the season. What have we generally seen? So I'm going to take John Collins off the court. I'm going to take Trae Young off the court.
Forever today. It is taking a while for me to update this.
There's a lot of it. It's going to, and as soon as you're done updating, there's going to be something else to update for, just so you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr.
Just letting you know. Yep. So the usage rates for this team, Bogdanovic leads the team in usage with both John Collins and Trae Young off the court, 28% usage rate. Cam Reddish is actually, well, Sharif Cooper second, but he doesn't matter. Cam Reddish is after that. He also doesn't matter. Then we've got Kevin Huerter, 24.6%, Gallinari, 23.4%. There's not really one guy who it's like, oh my, this guy takes on the Trae Young role and just becomes a massive usage guy. One thing that is kind of interesting, Delon Wright, do you see what his usage is in minutes without John Collins and without Trae Young?
No, because I get at my screen and it's still loading. So that's a problem I cannot see.
With Trae Young and John Collins off the court, a pretty substantial sample size here. 603 minutes for Delon Wright without those guys on the court. 11.5% usage rate and scores 28 fantasy points per 36 minutes.
Smash.
Oh, that's
Smash.
Encouraging to you?
No, hang on. What were you just saying? I must not have been listening to you correctly. It sounded good. Would you say 28% usage, or did I miss
11.5% usage rate, and
bad.
he scores 28 fantasy points per 36 minutes. Yeah. So per minute, Delon Wright scores about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute with Trae Young and John Collins off the court. What do you make of that information? Because it is a little bit concerning, especially when you consider that Delon Wright has not really been particularly successful as a starter this year. We have now seen, let's see, how many starts from Delon Wright? Delon Wright has made 6 starts this year, averages 27 fantasy points in those starts. Not terrible, not, fantastic either. His price point,
it's 3,300, dude.
Yeah, so that's he's 30. He's the min on FanDuel, close to the min on DK. But does anything about his rates with those guys off the court give you any kind of pause?
No, not really, because the minutes are just so solid. They're so there. This is such a different far cry from a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker for me. $200 pretty negligible. I think on this slate, you can still get to a lot of studs. We have so many guys that we can land on different ranges here. As long as he's starting, and we're going to know that by the time this show gets over, because 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, that's going to be there. I really have no concerns going his direction. And as you said, no Collins, no Trae Young. I didn't see what the minute sample was for that one alongside both of them, but I'm assuming it's pretty substantial because they both
over 600
time. It's over 600. I was going to say it had to be substantial to a certain extent. Bogdanovich was out there for quite a while. Let's see, when was that? There was like a week and a half stint that he missed in January. That 2 weeks that he missed in January. So obviously it would have been nice to see him be more impressive there, but he's 3,300 and he's the min on FanDuel. That alleviates any concerns I have.
Yeah, I just gave him 32 minutes that got him to 24 fantasy points. At his kind of salary, it's still a good play. Yep. Even if you look at his rates and you're as pessimistic, because that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to be as pessimistic as possible. He still looks like a good play on both FanDuel and DraftKings at his salary. So are those numbers good? No, but it doesn't really matter. It is priced in the amount of minutes that I'm expecting him to play. Some other pieces of news that just came in. Indiana Pacers, Chris Duarte out. Goga Bitadze likely to play. I kind of think, where's Bitadze's projected ownership at? Goga.
Pretty high. It was north of 10%. I know that.
Do we have a fresh update with all the news that's come in? We do.
Probably not. It's going to take a little bit. We do. Updated for Atlanta?
Let's see. Is it not for Atlanta, but we do for Miami? Okay. Where's Lowry at now? Kyle Lowry is now projected for 15% ownership on DraftKings. He's up to nearly 40 on FanDuel. 15% on DraftKings is egregiously low to me.
It's really low, and you should play more than that. There's a lot of plays to get to on this slate, but we're talking about a guy that, the assist rate is through the moon, absent Jimmy Butler, and we need to just get to a lot of him. I would tell you exactly what it is, but the place that I normally get all of my on-off court numbers is literally just got a little wave on the basic page for it, and it's not going well for me on that. So if anybody else is having an issue with add more funds, let me know, but I am having major issues with it right now.
Yeah, I guess big slate with a lot of injuries. A lot of people trying to access the same information at the same time.
Yeah.
So let's do you have any other guards that you want to talk about for the slate?
Can we talk about James Harden as far as his price point? He's sub 10K over on DraftKings, and talk about assist rates. He's a guy that I just want to be over invested to. I was saying that I'm not really finding myself landing on as much Luka. Now we'll see if that ends up changing when I get a guy who's actually 3,300 I believe in. As opposed to NAW, who I just didn't as much. But CJ McCollum at 9,300 was another guy against the Spurs. We're seeing some of these duels. Him and SGA, DeJounte Murray and SGA just went completely nuts together the other night. I think you're going to see that a lot going up against the Spurs, absent Derek White here, where, you can look at him and Keldon Johnson on one side and then the stud on the others. CJ McCollum, really the only piece of the Pelicans I want to get to, but 9,300. High assist rate, high usage that's going to just start returning here. We just got news SGA is in, so that's good to at least kind of get that short up. I don't have to look at playing any cheapies from OKC here, and I can just go above the field on SGA again, sub 10K on DraftKings.
As far as James Harden goes, the usage has been there. He's just not making his shots. Mm-hmm. And a player of James Harden's caliber, it's been a really weird season for James Harden, and I'm starting to think he's probably on the decline, but the price more than accounts for it when he's sub 10K. And like I said, too, you now look at the last month for James Harden, his usage rate over 25%. He just has to start making some of those shots. It's not quite the same usage as he had in Brooklyn, which makes sense because a lot of his games in Brooklyn, Kevin Durant wasn't there. Kyrie Irving was only a part-time player. And even at the start of the year, there was no Kyrie Irving. But now he's sharing the ball with Joel Embiid. It stands to reason the usage would be a little bit lower. But it's still there. And I think there's upside in James Harden. We saw it in his first couple games with the team. It just hasn't been there lately. But I think a bounce back is in store. So I'm with you. I think he's somebody to get to. And I assume his ownership is going to drop quite a bit from all the news we've just had come out.
Yeah. Are you going to do anything with Duarte out as well? Because I wasn't really going to take any shots on Brogdon or Halliburton, but I think I kind of have to now. They were going to have to play 38 minutes here. Buddy Hield, they have all the usage and opportunity available to them. Are you going to take some shots on them? It's a fantastic Houston spot, and they're just really, really low owned.
Brogdon's a tough one for me because I think they're going to start limiting his minutes soon. He played 28 minutes last game. I just like, why even play him? What's that?
You would think rational coaching would limit his minutes, but this is not rational coaching.
Well, he played 28 minutes last game.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a one-sided game, but I just don't like, why do you play him? He missed, how much time did he miss with the Achilles injury? He basically missed from December. He missed 2 months because of an Achilles injury. They brought him back too soon twice. Twice they brought him back too soon from the Achilles injury and to miss more time. Then they bring him back. He plays a couple of games. They rest him. And then he gets a concussion and misses some more time. Comes back last game, plays 28 minutes. There's clear upside for him, right? No Duarte, great matchup against the Houston Rockets. It's just hard for me to personally project him for a whole ton of minutes. I like Goga the most of anybody from that team, and it doesn't feel terrific, but we have Isaiah Jackson also out in the front court now. He was somebody who was taking up minutes, and I think this is about as shored up as Goga's minutes have been in recent games. And it's also a team in Houston that plays pretty big front courts, Şengün and Christian Wood. So I think we could see the Pacers kind of try to match that with bigger lineups. And if you give Goga even just 22 minutes, he looks like a pretty good points per dollar play. And I just don't think they have as much flexibility to go small with Duarte out now.
Yeah, and there's spend ups at every single position. Like normally center is stacked. Don't get me wrong. Jokic, Embiid, the opportunity to roster a cheap Gobert. You get Bam Adebayo now at the center spot. Like there's a lot of guys that I do want to play there. And so wasting a center spot and going down there cheap isn't my favorite thing. But we do have Delon Wright. And also you can roster 2 on DraftKings. Just play a lot more of him over there. You get the opportunity. As you said, I project him for 28 fantasy points. That is a lot of fantasy points for a guy who's 3,400. We do have a number of spend ups, whether it's LeBron James, Kevin Durant at the forward spot, Jason Tatum, lots of guys still to get to there. So if you can find some savings down there, I mean, the guy has been very, very good in limited minutes lately. I don't think that stops now.
All right, let's get on over to the forwards. I know we try to go position by position. It really does get difficult as we go through these because the amount of news and questions we get as we go along. So we'll hit on forwards, but first, March Madness has started. I'm sure you guys are aware that March Madness is underway. You've probably, like myself and like Eric, picked out some really terrible brackets where a lot of your teams have lost so far. But good news, because we still have college basketball DFS. So if your bracket is busted, but you're still looking for a DFS sweat, you could sign up for our March Madness package for $29.95. You'll get access to our betting picks in the Discord channel. It's our best March Madness offer ever. I don't know if that's true, but it's what it says in the copy. So I'm going to take that to be fact. This is our best March Madness package ever for $29.95. You get daily betting picks from Ben, Rasa, and Matt Kajeski in our Discord channel. All right, let's hit on forwards. And Eric, I think we have to go a little bit more broader picture here, considering the amount of time we have left. Who are the highest priority forwards for you on this slate?
I'm getting to a crazy amount of Jalen Smith right off the bat. While you're talking about Goga, power forward eligibility is really, really nice to get for Jalen Smith. It's primarily where I'm going to play him over on DK. So that's been a major thing that's changed in my lineups in the last, however many minutes. So I want to throw him out right from the get-go. But on the top end, you're looking at Bogdan Bogdanovic from Atlanta now. He's a guy that I'm just going to get to a crazy amount of. Right now we have him in our update, 17.3%. That's not enough. I'm going to be well north of that. He has shooting guard, small forward eligibility. I'll just kind of let him fall into lineups wherever he may fit there. I'm not going to be playing any of these guys at 15%. We've got Denny Avdia and PJ Tucker at 15% respectively. I mean, Delon Wright exists on this slate until I hear otherwise here, but Danilo Gallinari, 4,800. I think that's a guy that didn't necessarily talk about right from the get-go in the reaction to this news, but we saw that he is ruled in, right? I did see that correctly. So Danilo Gallinari, I'm going to be getting to quite a bit of here. DeAndre Hunter, I'm going to be getting to a lot of. I mean, this Atlanta side, I mean, I didn't anticipate getting to more than two players of any, more than two players from any team tonight, and that includes Utah. I might be getting to quite a few lineups with 3 Atlanta pieces now.
We have a super chat here from Michael McKinney. His usual question. You guys know the drill. Who are the 3 best spend up options tonight on FanDuel? Best spend up options overall.
All right. Well, I'll give my 1, 2, 3, and then you can give your 1, 2, 3. I think with Delon right now, it is so easy to play Jokic. He is number 1. Jokic is going to be 1 for me. I think because of positionality, I'm going to go Kevin Durant at 2, and then number 3, Luka Doncic.
Yep. Jokic, Harden, Doncic for me. It's just the price point that we have on Harden right now on both FanDuel and DraftKings. in the position. I have no clue why the hell he remains small forward eligible on FanDuel. He's 9,500. We can play him at shooting guard or small forward. And those are kind of two of the weaker positions relative to value we have at other spots. So I like James Harden a bunch on both FanDuel and DraftKings in most recent run of ownership. Let me refresh and see what we have for Harden now and for Delon Wright for that matter. Looks like we have an ownership projection for a couple minutes ago. Yeah, this does include the Atlanta Hawks news. Listen to this, Eric. Delon Wright is projected for 12% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's projected for 14% ownership. James Harden, and the reason I'm tying this into James Harden is just because we have all this value at point guard. James Harden is projected for 6% ownership on FanDuel with small forward eligibility. And then on DK also remains fairly not popular, sub 6% ownership. What do you make of the field not apparently getting to Delon Wright right now?
Thanks. I'm going to play a lot more than you are, and it's going to work out better for me than it is for you. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's
it's low.
That's very low. The only thing I was kind of concerned about with Delon Wright and his low fantasy production with Collins and Trae Young off the court was thinking, maybe this would be a situation where he ends up being, like 50% owned, which I think would kind of be appropriate. And then the field just would be just so high on him that there would be reasons to make pivots to other guys. If he's not going to be popular, load up on him. No concerns really at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's surprising. I feel depending on what tournament you're in, higher stakes up you go. There's no way that that's getting overlooked. But if you're playing, some of these large field tournaments, I mean, this isn't like I want to get all the Delon Wright. Similar to Rudy Gay. I mean, he's the min on FanDuel, and he's a guy that is on a site, FanDuel specifically, where everybody's a little bit underpriced. There's some really, really incredible plays, both at the mid-range spending up for, but 3,500 allows for me to play 3 of Jokic and Embiid if I want to go that direction in lineups, Durant and James if you want to go that direction, and then Doncic, Trae Young, or not Trae Young anymore. Sorry, Doncic, SGA is going to be a guy at 9,900. I mean, there's just so many great plays that are way underpriced for their role. So you want to get to lots of them, play a lot more Delon Wright.
Yeah, one other forward here, the same reasons I like Goga, but Jalen Smith with forward eligibility.
Yep, I said smash.
Yeah, over fantasy point per minute, and all the same logic with Goga applies to Smith as well, though Smith probably his minutes are a little bit more secure. He's a little more expensive also. But it's another really strong forward option who's kind of in the mid-range, $5,700 over on DraftKings. FanDuel, Jalen Smith is $6,100, a little more expensive. I still don't care. I think this is a really strong guy to get to. If you expect him to play around 30 minutes, which I do, you're looking at a fantasy point projection of mid to high 30s fantasy points. There's another guy that I think looks really strong with Chris Duarte out and somebody who's popping up in my lineups as a forward. Who are some of the other players on the cheap end that we've not talked about that you're using to save salary with at forward?
Yeah, a lot of these Atlanta guys now are going to kind of mix and match in. I mean, DeAndre Hunter, I think, has a decent enough availability there. Project him around 30 fantasy points at 5K. That's pretty good. Get Gallinari as well, 4,800 for him. I don't really want to be doing any Okongwu today. That's a completely different situation we're looking at here. Once again, the caveat of Delon Wright, going back to that for 1 second, as we're just talking about Atlanta, is that he would be starting. Make sure that he's starting. If he's not, again, you've only lost exposure to one game, Dallas, Philly. You should already kind of just know that those are just the studs you want there, and we'll wait on value later. So we'll be able to react to that in the after hours show and be able to kind of cover that for you. But rest of forwards, I mean, Jalen Smith was the guy that I wanted to touch on right from the get-go, and he was the first guy that we talked about because I think he is that big of a priority for you now. Absent Isaiah Jackson, obviously absent Miles Turner, he hasn't been there forever. I'm not really getting to a ton. It's more scattershot now down at the bottom end. I'm surprised how much on FanDuel, especially, I'm paying up here because Bam Adebayo is power forward eligibility. Domantas Sabonis is power forward eligible. And you have the opportunity of getting him absent De'Aaron Fox, and that would just be a smash beyond smash. So I think that a lot of on FanDuel, my main forwards are all guys that I'm spending up for, which is surprising enough.
Can I tell you something that makes me feel uncomfortable? I think PJ Tucker's kind of an okay value play on this slate.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? He's like 15% owned. And again, we've seen some upside from him in random spots, but this is a 12-game slate, and you're going to roster a 15% PJ Tucker.
Yeah, but I have almost the exact same projection on PJ Tucker that I do for Delon Wright.
Oh, man, I just got queasy. It's not great. I mean, you can admit that it sounds weird when you say it, right?
So the points per minute fantasy production for PJ Tucker is very similar to Delon Wright's without John Collins and Trae Young. I think they warrant having a similar projection.
Delon Wright's up to 37% on DK.
There we go. And
That
like I said,
happened
I have a nearly identical projection on Delon Wright and PJ Tucker.
Just refresh it. I hate when you make sense, Greg. I really don't like it very much.
There's no Jimmy Butler there. Let's see. If
I
we
got
go,
can we talk about Tyler Hero? He's one guy we haven't talked about it at all. Is he just a guy?
No,
this slate,
I talked about him when Butler's rolled out.
Well, I just don't want to play as much of him as what I have. He's currently 11.6%, and that tells me that I need to play 20%, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah. So by the way, Delon Wright about appropriately owned now. I think that this is much different looking at him at 14% owned versus where he is now. But let's go over to the Miami Heat, and I'll just pull back up the numbers with Jimmy Butler off the court as it pertains to Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero usage rate over 30%. Sans Jimmy Butler scores 1.12 fantasy points per minute. By the way, I might as well throw in a little PJ Tucker here. Who do you think scores more fantasy points per minute? PJ Tucker without Jimmy Butler or Delon Wright without Trae Young and John Collins?
Just say it. Obviously, it's PJ
Not
Tucker.
only is it PJ Tucker, it's PJ Tucker by a pretty wide margin. 0.83 fantasy points per minute for PJ Tucker compared to 0.78 for Delon Wright.
Wasn't that fun? Isn't that? I said you were making sense. I
just saying.
Again, there's so much stuff updating and like talking through it. I think you're absolutely correct. Which one do I feel more confident about?
Yeah.
I feel exponentially more confident about Delon Wright being a guy that is going to just mentally in my mind, because PJ Tucker's done this for however many years, but that you can't overlook the math. The math is still correct. And, they're identical spots. And plus there's so many guys at guard. I mean, forward, yeah, you get Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and I talked about the guys on FanDuel, but on DraftKings specifically, there's a lot more guards I want to get to, I think, than just pure forwards.
Yeah, and by the way, some updated ownership now that the Atlanta players are taking into account the three most popular players on DraftKings: Delon Wright, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Danilo Gallinari, all Atlanta Hawks. Over on FanDuel, the number one most popular play is Jordan Clarkson. 2 is Delon Wright. 3 is Bogdan Bogdanovic. Then you scroll down only a little bit. We've got Kevin Huerter at 25%, DeAndre Hunter also at 25%. This is going to be a massive, massive chalk Atlanta Hawks team. I get why. We're taking Trae Young and John Collins off the court. It's a lot of production to replace, and none of these guys are all that expensive. By the way, I still like Delon Wright. I'm just kind of making a case to get some exposure to PJ Tucker as well.
Here's what I'm thinking I'm going to do now. And again, we're making decisions. 7 minutes to go here. We still have a while going. I'm going to play a lot more Davion Mitchell, because I think what happens is a lot of these guard spots are going to disappear for people. And if you get De'Aaron Fox out, he's the absolute nuts on this slate. 3,800. I have no qualms about his production absent De'Aaron Fox. And I do lean De'Aaron Fox being out more than in here. It's a right hand injury. It's a team that's playing really, really poor basketball. And they're playing Boston, so they could probably get their asses kicked either way. I think Davion Mitchell is the absolute nuts to get to. You even get a guy like Justin Holiday, 3,400, DiVincenzo less so, 4,900, but it's absent De'Aaron Fox. You still have to compete with Sabonis, but I think Davion Mitchell becomes perhaps the best tournament play on the slate, because if you have guard spots, period, you want to get to this guy more than you want to get to Delon Wright at his current ownership. Would you agree?
I like Delon Wright. I'm just kind of making a case for somebody else out there. And we've got somebody in chat who's saying, obviously the difference is that Wright is replacing a high usage guy and Tucker's just going to be running back and forth across the court. We've seen over 600 minutes for Delon Wright without Trae Young and John Collins on the court, and he's an 11% usage rate. Mm-hmm. That's not any different than what he's doing. Delon Wright's been a terrible fantasy producer without those guys on the court. It just doesn't matter because he's so cheap and he's going to play a lot of minutes. He's a good play. I think PJ Tucker is viable as well. Super chat from Uzi Azizov. Thoughts on SGA and Tatum today? So we had SGA was listed as questionable. He was just ruled in. Jason Tatum, he's been playing excellent in the second half of the year, got off to a slow start to the season. Maybe it's something to do with a new coach in the mix. Who's to say? But SGA, Tatum are these guys you're getting exposure to.
Yeah, SGA is definitely a guy to play over the field. I mean, people just aren't going to be able to get to as much. Tatum's hard for me. He's been playing really, really well. The nice thing about him is that you can turn him and his salary into other plays if things happen throughout the entire evening, where you can kind of land on different builds and you might need some extra money to make it work, some kind of a 2v2 for tournaments. But I don't think he's any kind of a priority, especially when you have LeBron, Kevin Durant. I just think I project them for more points. I think we have enough value now that's happened in the last 45 minutes. We shouldn't be trying to like make them any sorts of priorities whatsoever.
Let's hit on center here and just try to summarize it really quick. Quick trivia question. Who do you think I like at center today?
I bet his name is Nikola Jokic.
Robert Williams. So Robert Williams is...
I walked into that one. I love Robert Williams, by the way, on FanDuel.
Yeah, I like Jokic is my favorite spend-up option, but I also... Robert Williams, though, I know the last game, the minutes weren't there. He only played 23, but that game was just one-sided. They beat the Warriors 110-88. It was a really disheartening game for the Warriors. They got off to a slow start. Then Steph Curry got hurt, and it was a game they were never able to get back into. So Robert Williams had an excellent first quarter, a solid first half overall. They just didn't play in the second half, finished with 23 minutes. Look at the two games prior to that. 35 and 34 minutes for Robert Williams. They're finally getting a little more comfortable playing him alongside Al Horford. This looks like the front court the Celtics are going to be rolling with in the postseason. We've got Robert Williams, pretty modest salary, $6,500 over on FanDuel. DK, he is a little bit more expensive at $6,800 and also only has center eligibility, which makes it a little harder to get to. I still like Robert Williams in the mid-range. Preferred option on FanDuel, still good on DK. You said you like him, so I assume you're on board, but who else are you looking at center?
Yeah, I think center, Domantas Sabonis is sub 9K over on DK. If that news breaks the right way, that could be a really sneaky smash, but there's so many great spend ups here early. I'm not going to like go out of my way to prioritize them the way that I might have here a little bit ago, just because I thought Nickeil Alexander-Walker chalk was a little volatile for me. Well, Delon Wright and PJ Tucker, I suppose, in certain regards, I think there's some decent enough value that I don't have to be trying to get as cute with some of that stuff as possible. I mean, I am going to front load still a lot of Davion Mitchell. I'm very curious what his ownership is going to end up being here if you get that news to break the right way. And if I have to get onto a bunch of Utah guys, if I don't have that news yet, I'm going to do it. But rest of the center spot, Bam Adebayo is my highest owned guy at that spot here right now. You can play LeBron James at the center spot. Oh, De'Aaron Fox unlikely to play Friday. Nailed that one. Let's go.
All right. So we'll talk on that in a second, but really quick, I want to answer this question in Discord. We're just going to take a second hit. Governaut, Dunn or Delon Wright on DraftKings? Delon Wright. I don't really see that much appeal to Chris Dunn because he's another guy who has not really been a good fantasy producer, but he's not going to get the minutes that Delon Wright is going to get. So Delon Wright for me pretty handily there.
Yeah, when he got drafted by my Minnesota Timberwolves, he was supposed to be this amazing two-way player. He turned out to be a really good one-way player. Not very good on the offensive end, not really that great. He can add a little bit extra from in terms of like FanDuel. If you're going to have him versus Wright straight up, I think that's a pretty interesting way to kind of look at it because he could be a pivot off of a very, very chalky Delon Wright here now. You're not going to see Dunn get any kind of extra ownership. And if he ends up beating him there, sweet. But now we just got another guy in Davion Mitchell that I'm going to have.
We just got 3 super chats, and I just want to answer them really quick.
Yep.
And then we'll hit on the De'Aaron Fox. Yeah. First from Picasso TV, Wright or Nickeil Alexander-Walker? That is right for me. How about you?
Same. Yep. Right.
Sig Homie Cow, Drummond or Eubanks? I prefer Drummond. How about you?
I prefer Drummond on FanDuel. I'm not playing either of them in any other place.
Demetrius Johnson, can the unicorn have some magic in New York tonight? I don't mind Porzingis for this slate as a little bit more of a contrarian option. He's had massive usage here in Washington. The downside has been this team sucks so much that he never gets to play in the fourth quarter of these games. But he is $7,500 on DK and on FanDuel and projected for 3% ownership. Over on DK, he's $7,200 and projected for 3% ownership. I actually think he's a very, very strong GPP play. Somebody I have in double-digit amount of lineups right now. Porzingis, somebody that you got to at all as a contrarian option.
I have a little bit. I don't have. I think you can make that case for about 20 people.
Yeah.
And so he makes a lot of sense because in terms of fantasy point per minute rate, especially in a new circumstance, I could expect him to be the guy long-term who has the highest rate. But once again, there are so many guys in that range. Pick one, go overweight on them, hope they smash.
I don't think anybody's projecting his minutes properly. And it's just something I've kind of taken note of. And here's the usage rate. We just got the net starting lineup, by the way. Dragic, Curry, Brown, Durant, Drummond. But here's the usage rate for Porzingis in his 5 games with Washington. 35%, 28%, 29%, 35%, and 30%. Last game, blowout, only plays 23 minutes. The game before, he plays 28. Shocking, another blowout. If these games are competitive, I think we're getting over 30 minutes for Kristaps Porzingis at like a 34% usage rate.
That would be fun.
I think it's coming. Now the question becomes, are they ever going to play in a competitive game again? Which is, if you're going to play in a competitive game, why not against the Knicks? The spread's only 4.5 for this game, so it's expected to be a little bit tight. All right, guys, thank you for sticking around. Don't go anywhere. I like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to hit on the De'Aaron Fox news now. Stick around. We're going to be talking about Yahoo for the next 30 minutes. If you guys are signing up for Yahoo for the first time, use the link in the description box below. You head on over to Yahoo, make a deposit, enter a contest, get yourself 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, and keep Terry busy because he has to figure out all those memberships manually. So you guys want to know how you keep Terry employed? Yes, sign up at Yahoo and keep Terry busy. All right, De'Aaron Fox news. He will not play today.
I'm so mad. Like, I just got done talking about this being the edge. And of course, this news comes out now as opposed to, 2 hours from now when it would be the nuts. And now he's going to be crazy popular.
Yeah. So De'Aaron Fox, for those who have missed it, De'Aaron Fox, which nobody's really tuning in just for the post-lock show, but De'Aaron Fox was listed as questionable, now considered unlikely to play. Let's see what we have. It's actually going to be hard to even look at these rates because they're all going to be out of whack because of the Sabonis inclusion here. It's reasonable to think Sabonis does almost everything for this team. I actually think he's my favorite pay-up option on the slate now.
Yeah, he's 8,100. I'm going to have like a near ridiculous 100% amount of him over on FanDuel. I already had a crazy amount. I thought he was a phenomenal play at 8,100 over there where you don't have to use the center spot on it. And he's just at an all-time low number, and you get De'Aaron Fox off the floor. I mean, I don't know if it burns me, it burns me, but I'm just jamming Sabonis. And then on DK, I mean, it's like him, Adebayo, both in that mid-range. As much as I love Jokic, it's really hard to get away from both of those guys as like clear-cut priorities for me now.
The other thing too, Sabonis was already going to be popular on FanDuel. Now he's just going to be even more popular. 8,100 is a just too cheap of a price tag. 8,700 on DK. He was projected for 7% ownership. I don't know. What do you think Sabonis gets to? Like 15 or something? I don't think he's going to be like 30 or anything.
Yeah, he'll be north of in the $15. I can't imagine that he isn't going to be 20%, but that'll be the highest. That'll be the highest number.
Yeah, I still love him. We just got a Lakers starting lineup. This is not the. Have you looked at it?
Yeah, I saw Gabriel.
Oh, okay. I was gonna make you guess it, but you've already seen it. So you could have really had me if you said no and you just guessed it correctly.
Then I would have been a damn dirty liar, Greg.
Yeah, then you would have been Doc Rivers and Joey.
And I would have been Joey Corman.
Yeah. The same joke at the same time. I hope Joey's watching. Lakers starting lineup: Russell Westbrook, Malik Monk, Wenyen Gabriel, LeBron James, Dwight Howard. Not the starting lineup we expected, but this does make me think we're going to see some bigger lineups out of the Lakers today. When you're going with Howard, Gabriel, and LeBron all in the starting lineup, does this move you at all from a value perspective?
No, I think Dwight Howard is so hard because if he gets to 20 minutes, he could be really, really good. But the number of times that he hasn't gotten to 20 minutes, this is far more important. Hawks, Wright, Herter, Hunter, Gallo, Capella, Delon Wright, fire him up however much you want. But Dwight Howard, God, I want to, but he's 3,900. We have this whole mid-range of center. It's like a different, if you're playing the express slate at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, I think that he makes an intriguing play. I don't know how on God's green earth I fall on Wenyen Gabriel at center at 3K. I mean, he's played 19 and 15 minutes the last two and has been decent. But like, is he the guy who's in play now? That just feels so wonky to me.
I don't think anybody's going to play him. And that's kind of interesting to me. Let me look at,
because he's a 0.95 DraftKings points per minute player on the year. He's a guy.
What has he done in previous years? Not bad. Last year, not 0.95, 11 and a half minutes per game, scored 9 fantasy points. The year before, Portland, the fairly crappy 7.9 minutes, 5.72. I think if you're playing 150 lineups, if you get to 5 to 10% of Wendy and Gabriel, I think it's justified.
Such a weird thing to hear somebody say out loud and have it be accurate. Do you prefer him over PJ Tucker now?
No.
Okay.
PJ Tucking all day, baby.
It's so weird. Oh, this slate is so weird for a 12-game slate to have that even be something that's in play.
Yeah, it's just what happens at the end of the NBA season, and we just got news. Also, Devontae Graham, Jose Alvarado, they both remain questionable. I guess we should probably jump over to New Orleans and just kind of address that as well, because if there is no Devontae Graham and there is no Alvarado has played some, pretty big fantasy games as of late where you give him extended minutes, racks up some steals and assists. We also have Brandon Ingram, who's out. What potential value is there if Graham and Alvarado ultimately end up being out? Could Trey Murphy work himself in there? Like, who the hell plays the guard minutes?
Yeah, it'd be Trey Murphy. Would have to be a guy who slid down and played the 2. I think he's capable of doing that. It'd be no problem. Garrett Temple, we always forget that he can go in and play big minutes for this team as an absolute safety valve. So I think that you have to at least be on high alert with that. But he's 4,100. There's no way in hell that I'm going to play him over Davion Mitchell or anything else that just showed up from Sacramento. So do I think that you have an opportunity to roster somebody really, really low owned and try to make a Trey Murphy a thing in that situation? I mean, the starting 5 with CJ McCollum at point, you could get like a very, very outside chance of having it be. No, it wouldn't. It would be McCollum, Marshall, Herbert Jones, Jonas Valanciunas, Jackson Hayes. Like, I think Najee could play 2, 3 possibly, but I guess Trey Murphy would make more sense than Najee Marshall as far as like a potential fill-in, but something tells me either Tony Snell or Garrett Temple could just play some useless minutes and really muck it up.
I forgot they have Ty Wallace on a 10-day contract. Remember him?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Ty Wallace 2 games ago played 20 minutes, 16 last game. They could probably grind Ty Wallace for like 24 minutes, not enough to make him appealing, but enough to make everybody else kind of look like shit. Even if Alvarado and Devontae Graham are out, unless they just end up starting Trey Murphy, I'm not sure that I'm going to love any. Even if Garrett Temple starts, it's not like he's been a piece of the rotation as of late. We have Garrett Temple. The last time Garrett Temple's played in the game was March 4th. He's been a DNP coach's decision in almost every single game over the course of the last month. He's played once since February 17th, and it was blowout run. I guess they might start him, but I just based on how much he's played as of late, that still wouldn't be appealing to me.
Okay. That's fair. I don't really know what else to say. It's like, yeah, it's such a thin spot compared to Sacramento now. It's just too thin.
So in terms of guys that are questionable, we have them. We still have Drake Crowder. We've gotten most of the big names out of the way. Let's head on over to OddsShopper and try to find our favorite NBA player prop bets, which I was supposed to do before on the locks before Lock Show. Did you watch?
Yeah, I saw like 2 minutes of it. My dog was going ballistic, and
yes, no, you could just answer honestly. No, and it's not a big deal. Like
I saw 2 minutes of it. You guys talked about. I tuned in for 2 minutes because I was just like, running around with the dog for a second, and it was something about football. You guys were talking Deshaun Watson, and that's all I heard. Yeah,
Deshaun Watson got traded in the middle of the show, and it kind of derailed everything. So I was going to say I'd be talking about the same things I already talked about, but that's not really the case because we only talked on a few of the basketball games. So let's open up OddsShopper, you and I together, Eric, and let's try to identify some of the best NBA player prop bets. Also, something else I should shout out about OddsShopper. We now have NCAA bets on there. So if you guys are looking to bet some player props for the NCAA tournament, we've got that on there as well. I don't know who any of these players are, but I'm just going to throw out the number 1 projected prop we have right now. It is Foster Lawyer. Am I pronouncing his name correctly? Who's to say? Yes. Who's to say? Nobody knows. Nobody's ever heard of this guy before. Maybe his family. He is under 14.5 real life points We have him projected for 10.5. The expected ROI 52% there. Expected win rate 77%. So that looks like something to hammer the under on with Foster Lower.
I don't know.
You
I got a better one
lower?
for you. Lawyer.
Are you sure?
No, I absolutely do not know. Davidson, I did see a little. I always try to watch a lot more tournament time so that I can do great things like have 3 of my 4 Final Four teams get eliminated on the first day, which is what happened yesterday. So I'm really glad that those extra 2 weeks of studying college basketball paid off. I've got 1 live team. Go Arizona. But I'm looking at Isaiah Brockington, Iowa State. It's always good when you know your team. Isaiah Brockington and this entire ISU team could not have looked any worse if they tried against Texas Tech. But in case anybody watched that game today, they have one of the most stifling, ridiculous defenses you are ever going to see. These starters are just going to play 38 minutes here for Iowa State. They've got a really good young core. Hopefully they stick around here. But Isaiah Brockington, both in terms of points, in terms of rebounds, 72% expected win percentage here. He is the offensive catalyst for this basketball team. He's going to need to have that that lefty stroke going. So hopefully Isaiah Brockington can get us there, both on OddsShopper and as an Iowa State basketball team, even though I have no hope against LSU.
I just read off one of the names I saw on the OddsShopper because I don't know who any of these people. I've heard of like 4 NCAA players, but don't worry. I'll come with some strong draft takes on players I've never heard of a couple months around, which we all do it. I used to when I did stuff for Basketball Monster, we used to make projections, like translation projections, which I could look at and just kind of had a good sense of like, oh, okay, these are the guys that we project to do well at the NBA level. But I'm pretty disconnected from draft stuff now. Let's hit on anything else you want to talk about from the NCAA there. If not, we'll talk the NBA props.
No, it's this draft this year is either you get Chet Holmgren or you don't, because I really don't like anything else.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about how skinny he is. In terms of him as an actual draft prospect, I don't know, but I wouldn't be concerned about him being skinny because I saw Adam had tweeted about how frail he is, something along those lines. And I remember there was the same injury report on Giannis, the same scouting report on Giannis. When Giannis first broke into the NBA, people said too skinny, too scrawny, won't be able to play against the strength of NBA players. Look where we are now.
Yeah,
I'm just not that concerned about 18, 19-year-olds that don't have a lot of muscle yet. It's something you get them on the NBA nutrition program. You stick a couple needles in their ass. They're strong as anybody. So
hey, you know who one of the skinniest players in the NBA is? Kevin Durant. So there you go.
0 reps on the bench press at the combine. Doesn't matter. He can shoot a basketball. What does he need a bench press? NBA props for today. Here is one that I mentioned before that's still available, so I'll bring it up again. Reggie Jackson over 2.5 threes plus 140. I haven't projected right around 2.5 threes. We have a little bit above that in our projections, but here's the key. It's plus money that you're getting on 2.5. So if you haven't projected somewhere around that number, it's just not the right odds. It should be minus 110 on both sides. I like the over on Reggie Jackson. It's something he's been doing with a good amount of regularity as of late. I think playing against the Utah Jazz, probably not a team you're going to want to challenge Rudy Gobert at the rim a lot. So I think there's more of a chance for Reggie Jackson settling for threes, especially when you consider his recent games: 4 made threes against Toronto, 3 against Detroit, 3 against Atlanta, 5 against Washington. I like taking the over on 2.5 there, plus 140 for Reggie Jackson. What catches your eye?
Good call, Eitan. I like that one. Well done by you. 3-pointers, smash the over. We are targeting volume, baby. We're going for that volume. Reggie Jackson, I'm just fine with that. He's going to get more opportunities than not here. I like Andre Drummond getting over on his blocks. I know it's minus 170 is kind of like the prevailing number for him right now. Look at Trendon Watford and Drew Eubanks and just getting Andre Drummond there in that starting unit. He's averaging on the season north of 1.5 blocks, split time between Philly and here. So it's a little bit different. He's getting more minutes though with Brooklyn. This is just a bad line. So minus 170 for 0.5 blocks. I would be intrigued to pair that with something else. I think that makes a nice addition to a lot of things. Yeah, you do run into some variance with some of these blocks, but we're talking about a guy who may not be good at real life basketball, but damn, does he do things from a fantasy perspective, and blocking shots is one of them. So Andre Drummond's the one that caught my eye.
Yeah, and then one more guy that I'm going to shout here is Clint Capella, because there is no John Collins in the mix for the Hawks, and we saw kind of about a 24 minute split with Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu for a little bit. It doesn't look like it's going to be the case now. Last couple of games, 31 minutes for Clint Capella and 28, 15 and 16 rebounds in those games. The props have not adjusted yet. His over-under is still only 10.5, and it's actually juiced towards the under right now. I have Clint Capella projected for, let's see, a little over 11 rebounds. We have him all the way up to 12 in the Awesemo projections. I like hitting that over 10.5. I think the minutes are more secure than they were in the past. I like taking the over there. Do you agree with that? And then is there anybody else that you're looking at?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I definitely agree. Capella, absent John Collins, just does a little bit of everything a little bit better. Sacramento, I wish I could have been on my phone to try to capture some of the upside of a Sabonis point prop, because everything I'm going through Odd Shopper right now is off the board there from Sacramento. You get that little 1 minute window and you can either get a bet in on one side of the game, or you can get you can take advantage of a player prop quickly if you're on a site like Prize Picks. We missed our window with that. That is sad to me, but one guy that I do like, Herbert Jones, is going to have to play a lot of minutes here for this Pelicans team. And just in terms of expected win percentage, which is what I'm most focused on if I'm playing a site like Prize Picks, I don't really care about the expected ROI out here in California. I just care that the win gets across the line. So Herbert Jones, looking at his 3.5 rebounds line, I like the over of that. 4.7 we have projected for him here at Odd Shopper. I haven't projected north of 5 rebounds. Just giving him 2 minute or 3 minute extra bump here in the event that you take out some of these guys that they're just walking wounded there, especially with no Devontae Graham could be there. So Herbert Jones, I like just kind of hammering the over on 3.5 now and letting it live. Maybe that'll be my pairing. -144 on one side if you're on a sports book in a legal state, putting that together with Drummond over 0.5 blocks. And I think you've got a really, really nice combo there.
A super chat from Justin Alberto. Is NAW playable on FanDuel? He wants to roster Bam, Jokic, JT, and Sabonis. Yeah, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is certainly playable. There's other valuable. There's valuable plays I prefer to him, but he's actually. Let me check what his ownership might have come down now.
Oh, way down. He's down sub 10% on FanDuel.
Yeah. So before we were a little concerned about the ownership, that is not a concern anymore.
Yeah,
so much other value
out the window. I always get nervous though, because what does happen is that there's a lot more people that aren't swapping. And, at the same time that you're going to see a lot of the top players, sharp players, you guys watching in chat, the people who are paying attention to the news, you guys are going to be reacting with your lineups. But especially on a site like FanDuel, it's surprising how many times you still see a guy like Rudy Gay, who's like 30-something%. You're still going to see NAW, I think, north of 10%. I hope not, because I think he's an atrocious play if he's over that percentage. But now, if he's going to be down sub 10%, and we can kind of, take that shot and feel confident that that's going to be the case, I would feel a lot more comfortable embracing that variance.
He's a good fantasy producer when he's on the court. Well, yes. I'll phrase it this way: he's a willing fantasy producer when he's on the court. Whether the shots drop or not, it's always a bit of a crapshoot with him. But he plays for your fantasy points. I remember a game last year. There was a slate where Nickeil Alexander-Walker might have been opening night, where he was a massive chalk play, and he was terrible, but he just would not stop chalking. So he ended up getting there, but it was because he shot like 3 or like 5 of like 20 from the field or something egregious. So he's going to go out there. He's going to shoot for your fantasy points. Darren Unger says we missed his super chat. Let me see if I could find. Oh, here it is. Darren Unger, Fred VanVleet, Hunter, and Bam, or Mitchell, Durant, Herter. So I'll read those names to you again, Eric.
I found it.
On one side, Fred VanVleet, DeAndre Hunter, and Bam Adebayo. On the other side, Donovan Mitchell, I assume, or maybe Davion.
No, it's got to be Davion.
Yeah, okay. So Davion Mitchell, Kevin Durant, and Kevin Herter.
I like the second one a little bit. I mean, I like everybody in that entire section. I'd say Herter is actually the guy that I like the least out of all 6. But Davion Mitchell is such a priority for me right now. I'm very surprised that we don't have much ownership going his direction yet. I just refreshed over here. Oh, he's up to 27% on FanDuel, 3,800, or sorry, on DraftKings, 3,800 over there. Where did his tag go on FanDuel? Did I refresh this? Let me see. This is specifically FanDuel. Yeah. I just want to play a lot of Davion Mitchell kind of all over the place. I think he's going to come in a lot low round, comparably to Delon Wright, and I think he's in the much better circumstance between the two. As much as I was beating the drum for Delon Wright earlier, I'm beating the drum for Davion Mitchell. That's how late news works. So I like the second one more just in terms of the way that my builds are coming across, but I have no problem with any 6 of those players. But Herder's probably the least interested I am in anybody, and I still have quite a bit of him.
Davion Mitchell currently projected for 26% ownership on FanDuel now. On DraftKings, he is up to 27%. As for Domantas Sabonis, he is projected for... Why can I not find him? Oh, here it is. He's only projected for 9% ownership on DraftKings. FanDuel, Sabonis is now at 27%. So he's gone up quite a bit on FanDuel from the De'Aaron Fox news. Not on DK, though. The updated ownership is still showing him sub 10%.
That's crazy to me.
I don't really think there's a lot of options to pay up for. I think if you say, is he going to be over or under that number? I say he's probably more likely to be over than under. I don't think he's going to be a guy who's like 25, 30% owned, though.
Oh, man. He will. I have so much going on. 8,100 on FanDuel. Domantas Sabonis is like priority beyond priority for me.
Yeah, even on DK, elevated price point, only center eligible. Still think it makes sense to get to him, especially now we have that updated ownership projection being pretty modest. Super chat from JR. Bogdan from the Hawks or Alec Burks, last man in FanDuel cash, Bogdanovich by a country mile?
It's like a country and then another country and then another country and then a mile in between the next country and then that country.
Light years apart.
Light years, yeah.
Light years.
Get in the Millennium Falcon, take off in one direction and don't stop.
Super chat from Corey Bomber. Tatum and Sabonis or Bron and Porzingis on DraftKings? That's tough.
Tatum, Sabonis, or Bron, Porzingis. Again, I like Sabonis, Bron, and Porzingis all more than I like Tatum, but I like the Sabonis side so much. I would say between that 2v2, Bron, Porzingis on DK.
It's such a tough one for me because of those players, Sabonis is my favorite. Tatum is my least favorite, which you kind of indicated is the same way that you feel as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like Sabonis a lot. I'm going to go with you, Bron and Porzingis also, because Porzingis, I laid it out before. He's getting slept on tonight. I think there's a lot of upside there, and I think people should be playing him more than they are. 3% over on FanDuel. He is projected for 3% ownership on DraftKings as well. He's got a lot of upside there. Got a question from Richie07G in our premium Discord channel asking us Herder or Bogdan, last guy in FanDuel cash. Bogdanovich. For the Atlanta guys.
We have to think about that. You can't possibly at the same number in cash in any kind of a cash format. There's like a sizable gap between the two of them. Am I not correct about that? Like, so how is that a 1v1?
So the salary on Herder is 5,200. It's 5,800 on Bogdanovich. 600. Yeah. It's not like a crazy big gap.
Oh, I was looking. I thought it was on DK 800.
No, FanDuel.
Oh, okay, cool. But still, that's quite a bit of a difference. You shouldn't be leaving that much on the table.
Ideally, you probably want to play both in cash at this point. I know it starts in 7 minutes. That game locks. Only one game underway right now. It's
such a fascinating cash build. If I were to be playing cash on FanDuel, I was just thinking about that a second ago for the heck of it, because sometimes I'll build out like for a bigger team if I'm like playing in a bigger single entry, which I'm not today, but I'll always kind of like go through the process of building it out. It's like, I don't know how in cash I would pass up D'Lo, Wright, and Mitchell together, but then am I just going to be paying up for like LeBron, Durant, Jokic? Is that going to be the 3 that I have in cash? I mean, it should be pretty easy to get up to those guys though today. So, I mean, if you play Mitchell and Wright, which are like the first 2 guys in, and you scatter like Bogdanovich and a couple of these Atlanta guys, get to 3 studs. I'd say that that's kind of like the main thing to say about cash games on FanDuel.
No shit in the bed right now.
Who?
Everybody. So the only one game that's underway is the Mavericks 76ers game. 4 minutes left in the first quarter. The score is 13-11. Luka,
I'm okay with it.
3 points, a rebound, and a block, and a turnover. On Philly side, Embiid 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 turnovers. Embiid barely has positive fantasy points. Harden 1 rebound, 1 assist. Nothing doing there. Studs all struggling. Not the ideal start. Looks like not great. Looks like it's going to be a very, very low scoring, slow paced game. So we've got the slate really starts 5 minutes from now, just because there's only one game underway. And then we've got a lot of the chalk about to kick off, all the Atlanta guys. And then, of course, we've got Jokic, which is always of interest to me. We've got the Lakers-Toronto game. That's going to be starting in a few minutes here. Now that we have our lineups updated for the Atlanta Hawks news, or at least I hope you do, because it's going to be starting soon.
Thanks.
What is your priority of Hawks from highest to lowest priority in terms of the guys you're actually getting to?
Well, this is great because I just updated my DK stuff. So here's how it came out. I got 54.7% deal on Wright because Davion Mitchell became the jam for me. But I'm over on deal on Wright. I think I am. I haven't refreshed that in a second. Bogdanovich, 33% on the number, 32.9. DeAndre Hunter, 27%. Gallo, 25%. Kevin Huerter, 16.5%. I did extend it. So the only team that I'm pretty much going to be getting to 3 of anybody on this entire slate is going to be them. Even for Sacramento, I don't probably get to anything else outside of DiVincenzo, Davion Mitchell, the clear priority with Sabonis. Those two are just like above and away. But I still probably don't want to get to like 3 in that situation. Atlanta, there's just so much opportunity absent Trae Young, John Collins, that I think you're looking at them being the only team that you could really get to 3 of. The key for me is making sure that I don't get to like 4 of these guys. Do not play 4 of them with as much upside as coming a little bit later. I think that that's a huge mistake people will make on this slate.
Yep, I think that's reasonable. And did you set a rule in Fantasy Cruncher to not allow lineups to have more than 3?
Yep. I mean, I've made it 2 max for every single player. Because again, this is a 12-game slate, and the chances of a tournament winning performance coming from 3 of an entire game, it's just so hard to identify where it would be unless you just get overtime, double overtime, and you game stack it, which I never do for NBA DFS unless it's like a small slate. So I'm looking at this as a thing where I just don't want to probably get to anything of 3. Like Sacramento, I might get a couple of them. Utah would be a huge mistake to play 3, I think, at this point. Clarkson, Conley, X-player, if you want to say it's NAW sweet, but like even still, the only shared statistic in basketball is an assist to a bucket. And I don't see a lot of opportunity for any team to do it outside of Atlanta.
Got a super chat here from Eddie Seja. Best 2 guards on DKGPP and best 2 forwards for DKGPP. Who are the 2 guards and the 2 forwards you have the most exposure to?
So guard, I mean, GPP, not necessarily spend up. So Davion Mitchell is my highest owned player period right now. And let's see. So I've got Davion Mitchell. Let me refresh guard here. And then I don't want to say Delon Wright, even though he's my second highest. I think he's kind of like a foregone conclusion that he's somebody you should be getting to on this slate. Maybe not 55%. I'm actually going to trim it down here in the next 3 minutes a little bit if I can, because I want a little bit of swappability to kind of fall into more. I'll give you a spend up on the top end. I just think Shea is going slept on. I think he's going to come in a little bit too low owned on the slate. There's lots of studs to pay up for, but 3.3% is by far the lowest we see at that range. I don't see a huge negligible difference between him, DeJounte Murray, and he's cheaper than these kind of guys. So I think Shea's kind of a clear priority for guard for me. I'll let you do the forward spots.
Yeah, so for forwards, for me, the ones I have the most exposure to are Bogdanovich and Jalen Smith. If I had to shout out my favorite GPP play, I've mentioned him a couple of times now, but it's Porzingis at 3% ownership. I'm telling you that eventually they're going to play in a competitive game and everything's going to come together. The usage rate seems inevitable that it's going to be over 30% for the rest of the season. Now we're just trying to question how many minutes is he going to play. And the only restriction so far have been 1, health issues, then number 2, blowouts. This game, he now has games under his belt. I don't think there's any real strict minutes restriction at this point. And then on the other side as well, it's a tight spread, only 4.5. So I think this is the spot where we finally see Porzingis blow up in the Washington Wizards jersey. We have a question from Ship My Benjamins in the premium Discord channel. Is Rui Hachimura in play for you?
No.
We said it at the same time. There we go. That was cute. Yeah, no Rui Hachimura. Eric, we're nearing the end here. We only got a minute left. If you guys haven't done it already, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you are signing up at Yahoo for the very first time, do it using the link in the description box below, and you can get yourself 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Is there anything that we've not yet mentioned over the course of the show that's popping up in your lineups that you want to leave the people with on the way out?
I have 2% Rui Hachimura, so I don't want to be a liar. I just looked it up. I guess he exists. So that's the nicest thing I can say. Kyle Lowry on FanDuel, still a clear priority. Again, I'm just thinking about this cash lineup on FanDuel, and it's just bonkers. You should have Kyle Lowry. You should have Davion Mitchell. You should have Delon Wright. That means that you're basically paying up for Jokic automatically. You're paying up for LeBron or Kevin Durant, or probably all 3, I think, on FanDuel. But Sabonis has to be in there at 8,100. So one of those 2 guys has to go away. Probably going to go to the LeBron side because he's a little cheaper if I'm building it out that way. But guys, it is such a great slate. This is just a spot where I don't want to be stuck with any W. He was popular earlier in the day. Whenever that happens, a lot of people set and forget their lineups. I would just be very, very careful about having too much or any of him at this point in time, because Sacramento, Davion Mitchell, all of those lower owned guys that we talked about from Atlanta are just clear priorities over him.
That is going to do it for us today, guys. Heading out. Have a great weekend. I'll be back here tomorrow. Oh, actually, just strategy show tomorrow. I've got my sister-in-law's birthday to attend tomorrow. We're going out to dinner. That'll be fun. So I'm not going to be on Live Before Lock. I'm not exactly sure who's filling in. I'll be doing the strategy show tomorrow morning.
Greg's such a good person, hanging with his family. Aw.
Oh yeah, take off. I took off work. What a great person I am. Oh my God, look how wholesome he is. Taking off work on a Saturday. Oh my God, look at him. Guys, if you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck tonight. Have a great weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, Emac's filling in apparently.
Oh, Emac, let's go.
you